Podcast City Network.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Final Score with myself, Chris, and Craig. And sadly, we do not have our video aspect this week, but you know, things happen. Technology breaks down. Technology, so
thanks for the update that supposedly is supposed to make things better, but it's very funny because even the support team told you that, oh, we kind of have these issues every so often, so then fix it.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You know, something's broke, you go and fix it, but I guess it doesn't always work that way for some reason. But
oh yeah, we know these issues come up. Oh, they come up every so often.
Yeah, so does.
So if you would know, then fix it.
So does taking a poop. But you know what I'd go do? I go and let her on out. So at the end of the day, though, we do not have our video aspect. So if you are listening to us, thank you so much for listening. You can definitely find us on all of our amazing platforms, which I do not have all up in front of me now to just read off like I normally do, but I'm going to remember them from memory because I'm good like that.
Ooh,
that's right. So we got Stitcher Radio.
Yep.
We got Google Play Music. We got iTunes.
Yep.
We got Podbean. I almost forgot where I was. iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting some here.
Did you say Spotify?
We didn't say Spotify.
You didn't say Spotify.
And there's YouTube.
And TuneIn.
And TuneIn. Look, we got them all.
Hey, look at that. Teamwork.
Teamwork. That's right, because it makes the dream work. Hey, look at that. But you know what? We do still have an exciting episode, but to make sure that you keep up on all the great things that we talk about on this show and to also see all the great graphics that we, a.k.a. Craig, puts out. All you need to do is go over to our social media accounts at PCN Final Score on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and check out all the great things we have there.
I am the social media guy. So.
You are the social media guy.
We'll get you there, though.
We're getting there. You handed me a book earlier today. So
I do. I have you some reading material on how to.
I'm going to learn myself something.
You're gonna learn today.
Going to learn today.
You're going to learn today.
But you know what? I think we both learned this past week after looking over our college football picks because things got crazy.
This is the second week in a row that we've really kind of struggled in picks, whether it be between college or NFL.
I was about to say, we did pretty good the week before with college.
Last week
I went 13-3.
Yeah, I went 12-4.
Yeah, we were very respectable.
Not this week.
No, definitely not this week. At least I kept it 500. But looking over some of our picks, you ended up going 6-10. I hit 8-8. And man, our percentages definitely took a dive, but there were some crazy games going on. A lot of ones that were really, really difficult. Starting right at the top with UCF and Cincinnati. That one was a doozy.
Yeah, that game I wasn't really surprised Cincinnati winning just because of the fact that
you picked them.
I did pick. Well, I mean, yeah, I picked them, but Cincinnati's a really tough team. They're a team that really kind of are overlooked. They've been on the rise for the last couple of years. They got Warren the second or Warren the third. They're running back.
Right.
I think his name's Mike Warren. I for some reason don't have it in front of me because
technology has been an issue for us today.
Technology preparedness. But Warren he's been their bell cow. He's been the guy that they have been riding for the last couple of years. He's pretty good. Luke Fickell's got a decent program there now.
And you know what's crazy is it seems like ever since Brian Kelly left for Notre Dame, the program took a little bit of a dip, but then it's been on like this just real steady, nice rise.
Yeah, and they've last year they did I think they had a double-digit win season last year. Mm-hmm. And then this year they were expected to be competing for the American Conference, which they are tied with Temple now at the top.
Yes, tied with Temple, and it's Michael Warren the second.
Michael Warren the second.
You were
okay,
right.
So I was right, Mike Warren, but the second.
The second.
Just go with your gut, people.
Go with your gut.
But UCF, this was a tough game because Gabriel, their starting quarterback, he's a young quarterback. He made some mistakes, but for the most part, UCF outscored or outgained Cincinnati in almost every category except for turnovers. And that's what their Achilles heel was in this game.
Yeah, and the only big thing Cincinnati really had on UCF was the rushing game because Michael Warren II ended up rushing for 133 yards on 23 carries, which is a great stat to have. But they also had nice contributors, from Desmond Ridder and Garrett Dokes. But you look over at UCF, they still managed 126 yards, and they were a little bit more split up. But when you look at that passing game, Cincinnati only had 149 yards passing versus, like we said, Dylan Gabriel did have some mistakes. He threw 3 interceptions, still had 297 passing yards and a touchdown. So It's definitely going to be a learning curve, because you don't have Mackenzie Milton.
Right, and then you've still got Winbush back there too. That's an interesting quarterback room they've got there. But
yes.
From everything that we've seen and heard, us being kind of local to UCF's the closest team to us where we live. Gabriel is the real deal. They really like him. So I think we've had this conversation. It was yesterday talking about this, about do they stick with Gabriel if Milton comes back? You say no, I say yes.
I don't know.
I don't think Milton's going to be the same player.
It's going to be interesting because even Dylan Gabriel right now, he's thrown for over 1,600 yards. He has 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the season. So he's not playing bad. He's playing very, very manageable. But the thing, like you said, Mackenzie Milton coming back, you can't hide that kind of star power. That guy really was able to make things happen for him when he was the starter. But like you said, a knee injury can change how a player plays, especially with the kind he had, because it was very, very gruesome. Very gruesome.
And we came to the agreement that it's not the physical aspect that would really hinder his development.
Right.
The mental aspect of coming back from that kind of a knee injury, bringing to light. You made comparison of Jalen Smith.
Yes.
Who. Let's just say that now. He's a freak of nature.
He is a physical freak. Yes, he is a physical freak. But
I was comparing it more so to Marshawn Lattimore, who came back. He tried to make a run. He wasn't the same player, and it got into his head.
And there's a lot of guys who have those sustained injuries. And, and I'm going to make another comparison right now. Carson Palmer. Now, Carson Palmer is
a good one.
Is his own animal onto his own right. And when he had his knee injury, he was already in the NFL. But we saw that he wasn't able to move quite the same after taking that injury. Now, it is a little bit different because we are talking about a much younger individual here who is playing on the collegiate level. So it is different. And from what I've seen with Mackenzie Milton, he's some would even say to the extent of a bullheaded kind of guy. But with that kind of approach, it usually helps guys in these kind of situations because they're able to kind of just push themselves through. They understand what they're having to go through. Yes, it sucks, but it's what the cards you were dealt. So you just kind of have to keep on rolling with it. But we both know it doesn't really matter until he actually hits live game action.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be the big thing. But still, he's going to be out the rest of the season no matter what.
So in their conference now, they dropped to 1-1 in conference, and they're sitting at tied for third with South Florida.
That's not someone you want to share anything with.
Yeah, right. So here's the big question, and I asked you this yesterday.
All right.
More so, I made a statement to you.
I was saying it's more of a statement.
More so, I made a statement that really sparked this debate between us. I think UCF's door is closed officially, but let me put a little asterisk next to that. Their national door is closed.
Okay.
The national spotlight. I think they need to tamper their expectations. Now, you've had a couple of undefeated seasons, and we've seen you've heard it. We live here locally. There are some UCF fans that don't know how to win graciously either.
No, they definitely don't.
They think they should go undefeated every year. This is not Alabama. Get the hell out of here. Okay.
Well, what's funny is that I actually attended Mackenzie Milton's last full game, which funny enough was also against Cincinnati last year in Spectrum Stadium down in Orlando, Florida. And it's crazy the kind of atmosphere you see there because they walk around like they're champs. They think they are the best. If you actually look up onto the media box that they have, massive thing. It actually says on there 2017 national champions.
Yeah,
not even joking.
They were undefeated. Yeah, I understand.
Just because they think they went undefeated. Sorry, you didn't play in the title game though. But should you have? Should you not have? It's a whole nother debate. But the thing is at the end of the day, they carry that. They try to carry that swagger, and I feel in a lot of respects it's unearned because you didn't win the national championship outright.
They're not even the best team in the state of Florida.
No, they're not. I'm sorry. If UCF played Florida right now, that Florida defense will make UCF's offense look like a bunch of pansy high schoolers. Like, let's be honest here.
I mean, you're right. But in that year, yes, they were a dominant football team. That's the other argument of playoffs and we got the systems rigged against us, blah blah blah. Okay, whatever. My Western Michigan Broncos, the year with PJ Fleck, we made the Cotton Bowl. We could have claimed to be, we need to be in the playoff too. Did we deserve to be in it? No, we couldn't hang with. We hung with Wisconsin that year.
Oh, you definitely hung with them, but
for the first half. But that's how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like those kind of teams are going to be there. But so I think the national window for them is closed. It's done for. I don't even think they're the best team in their own conference anymore.
I have to agree with that at least as of right now. But you got to look. They've been through a lot of transition through this quarterback issue that they've been having since Mackenzie Milton went down. You've been playing a freshman. You had a second quarterback you're playing. You had Brandon Winbush transfer in from Notre Dame. So it's been a lot of a fluid situation, if you will, at the quarterback position. The big thing I see that's the big difference from that 2017 team to what we see now is that Scott Frost is no longer at UCF. That I think makes all the difference. Now, I don't agree that the door has completely closed, even on a national scene. I think right now, though, it's still closing, and right now there's still that little creek where you can kind of peer through and see what's on the other side. But that door can easily get kicked right closed if they are not careful. And with how things are looking, with them having these kinds of losses to Pitt on the road, to Cincinnati on the road, it doesn't really help them with the recruiting side either. So if you end up not being able to have Mackenzie Milton come back, or if he comes back and is not able to play to the same level that he used to, what do you do from there?
I think Gabriel is the answer for them, and you just got to ride with him. This is going to be the year you're going to take your bumps with him. And if Mackenzie Milton comes back and he's ready to play near the end of the year, I think UCF can still win out for the most part. End of the month they play at Temple. I think that's a loss on the road.
I'd have to agree.
But every other game they're winnable and should be very easily winnable. They've only got a couple other road games after that. But if Mackenzie Milton comes back and you ride one game with him, you're like, okay, this is not like, okay, there's gonna be rust. You can't. I wouldn't hemorrhage Gabriel's development just to bring back Milton, just for the story, or just if you think that, unless you really think that he is what's going to turn everything around and have you win out the rest of the season, and hopefully you're going to need some help now. Cincinnati's going to need to lose 2 games, and Temple's going to need to lose 2 games in your own division just for you to get a chance to play probably who's going to be SMU on the other side.
And what the crazy thing I look at is that looking at their schedule, you have East Carolina, then like you said, Temple, but then Houston, but 2 road games at Tulsa and Tulane. I think are going to be really, really tough for UCF to go in and try and win, especially with Tulane.
And well, even Tulsa, they took SMU to 3 overtimes this weekend.
That's right. And did you see that touchdown catch that Tulane or that they were able to pull off?
Man,
it was SMU just got that joker. Oh, so nice. Anyways. But looking at it, though, I don't think UCF's even going to be able to win out, even if Mackenzie Milton comes back. But the big thing is, if UCF is smart, and if you, like you said, you want to keep with the development with this new quarterback, with Dylan, you need to let him start the rest of the year. Shut Mackenzie Milton down. Don't even let that be an option this year. Next year, have a quarterback battle. Figure it out.
Like that.
If Mackenzie Milton wins out and shows that he can still do it, then why not? The guy won you a bunch of games already in previous seasons, so it would make sense. But this year, I don't think it needs to happen.
I agree. We'll have to see what happens. But with that ever-developing story, he's still got a couple of years left, correct?
I believe 2 years.
2 more years?
I want to say 2 more years. But
so I agree. I think you shut him down the rest of the year and have an actual quarterback battle next season.
But you know who might not have 2 more years? One, John Harbaugh.
Jim,
whatever.
I'd
They're
rather
brothers.
have John Harbaugh.
I would say John Harbaugh might win you more games. But no, I'm sorry. Yes, Jim Harbaugh might not have 2 more years left. But then again, he might have saved himself a little bit by pulling off this amazing win against Iowa. You got this pick right. I ended up picking Iowa. I'm already 0-2 at this point in the games we're talking about. But Michigan somehow pulls it out with a great defensive stand. But that offense, question marks abound.
There is so much turmoil I think, behind the scenes that we won't know until the end of the season. Because clearly there are 2 big conflicting styles. It is Josh Gaddis was brought in to try to do this, quote, speed and space kind of thing where they open up the offense and have spread. The formations are spread. It looks spread. The play calling is not spread. The play calling is still pro-style offense. And it's really concerning if you are a Michigan fan that, okay, Shea Patterson, I think everyone finally realized that he's not as good as he was touted when he was transferred in.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. Harbaugh still can't recruit a decent quarterback.
For whatever reason.
He hasn't, and I think I touched on this last week. I've looked at all the previous quarterbacks he's had since Andrew Luck, and even right before Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is the only one that had a decent season, and I'm talking like, in comparison to top quarterbacks in the nation, all the others, subpar. All of the others have been subpar.
Definitely.
So that begs the question, Harbaugh, being a quarterback himself, maybe it's the Michael Jordan scenario where he played well in college, but he's a terrible, terrible coach of coaching his own position.
Honestly, I think you're onto something here, and it makes total sense looking at it. And there's a lot of guys that are like that. Might have played great when they were in college. Were able to be producers themselves, but aren't able to translate that into a younger generation. So
yeah, the only Michigan quarterback that's had any success of being able to run an offense under Harbaugh has been Jake Rudock, who was a grad transfer from Iowa and even got off to a rough start in the first couple games.
Oh, yeah, I remember
First
that.
3 or 4 games, everyone's like, oh, geez, now what are we going to do? And then he rattled off something. But ever since then, you've had a revolving door of underperforming quarterbacks, Spate, O'Korn, Brandon Peters. I'm missing a couple, but Shea Patterson, Joe Milton, McCaffrey, the list goes on.
Yeah, it's bad.
You got to wonder if at some point you got to look at Harbaugh and go, maybe he's not this quarterback guru that people thought he would be.
Yeah, he's no quarterback whisperer.
Definitely not.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, is that, and we were looking at the records earlier over his tenure with Michigan, he hasn't had a losing season. And that's the big thing you look at. Most of them have been 10-win seasons still. So
it's easy when you're undefeated against the bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten.
Because that's the big thing we're talking about, too. They have not beaten Ohio State with Jim Harbaugh. They have losing records, except for his first year against ranked teams. Yep. And even in his first year, it was, 3-2?
And he's now, with this win against Iowa, he's only 1-1 against Iowa. He's got a 500 record against Michigan State, has not beaten Ohio State. Wisconsin, I want to say, is I think it's 2-2.
I was about to say 2-2.
It's 2-2, but it's not a good record. And if you're at a program like Michigan, and this is your year, we've said it on this show. I've said it on this show for the last 4 or 5 weeks that if Harbaugh loses 4 or 5 games, he should be fired. But it's not going to happen because he's the golden goose of Michigan, unless he. I would say we talked before, we were kind of debating this. The only way I think he gets fired after this year is if he loses out, basically. If you lose out, okay, there's no choice, but you got to get fired.
Yeah, you're going to be a 4-8 team at that point. But the big thing I look at is with the rest of their schedule, they have what I feel like only 2 true winnable games. You have to still play a ranked Penn State team. You have to play a very defensively nasty.
That's on the road, correct?
That one is on the road. So that one will be in Pennsylvania.
We have one in Happy Valley
in
the last few years. So,
but this Penn State team is looking really good.
They're looking good.
But then you have to follow that up with a home tilt against Notre Dame, who defensively is looking amazing right now. Offensively, still kind of questionable, which could play into Michigan's favor. But even then,
that's our specialty is strong defense and questionable offense. So
you're looking kind of like Notre Dame then.
Yeah.
But that's still going to be a really close game. And then you have to follow that up with a road matchup against Maryland, which Maryland's been kind of hot and cold this season. But that could be a very potential trap game if you're caught looking forward.
Yeah, and that's going to be a tough game anyway. Being on the road, we haven't played well. We've gotten off to rough starts on the road. Michigan has, and if Maryland can start putting up some points early, that's really going to be a dogfight. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Then you have to follow that up with a home tilt against Michigan State, which they just got beaten real bad by Ohio State, but everybody's pretty much going to be that way against Ohio State this season. But
Michigan State, you throw out records. You throw out records at that game. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. Then you have that, I think, a winnable game against Indiana on the road, which they might still pose some problems, but you should be able to pull away late. But then the big one, at home against Ohio State.
I'm already not looking forward to that game.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields is going to have a field day. No pun intended. But
look at you.
Oh, look at me. I get punny sometimes. But if you lose all 4 of those games against those ranked teams and say you lose to either Indiana or Maryland in there, you're at 6-6. At that point, do you see Harbaugh getting kicked out?
I think he might resign if that happens. Because like I said, I don't think he's going to get fired. Michigan will not fire him.
God.
They will not fire him, and we're going to get stuck in this hell of being mediocre at. It's funny that I say 10-3 is mediocre, but in the national stage, 10-3 is mediocre.
Yeah, that does not get you into the playoff. That doesn't get you to a New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Half the time.
Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah,
yeah.
But it's going to be the defense played well. They bailed out a terrible offense, which is really shocking to a lot of people because you got so many good receivers, you got so many good players on this team, and you're returning a lot of players from offense, and Patterson gets 174 yards passing.
Oh, ridiculous.
And looks awful in doing it. So it's going to be a big test for both teams, even because Iowa now has to play. Who do they play next week? Penn State?
I believe so.
Penn State. Good luck, Iowa. But other games, we both missed out on TCU, Iowa State.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us could have seen that one coming. That one was pretty crazy.
TCU's been a borderline top 25 team, as has Iowa State.
They dominated because Iowa State ended up taking this game 49-24. Brock Purdy ended up having a great 247-yard game with 2 touchdowns. And, turn around and also rush for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Brock Purdy he's a good player. He's a very good quarterback, and being in this Big 12, he's going to shine. So it's that's a good win for Iowa State, who's really been needing to kind of re-find themselves after losing to Baylor on the road. They lost a really tough game to Iowa earlier this year. So I think that's a dark horse team that could make a push in the Big 12. Obviously, no one's touching Oklahoma, but
no, definitely not.
But I mean, that's a dark horse team that could really make some noise in the Big 12.
Definitely. And then looking at the next game, we had Tulane traveling to West Point to take on Army. And Tulane, you got to kind of keep an eye out for Tulane. They only have one loss, which was the 18-point loss to Auburn in Auburn. And otherwise, though, they have pretty much dominated a lot of their schedule. They had won by a touchdown last week against Houston, but Houston's a pretty decent team. So Tulane was able to go out and get it done 42-33 against Army and get that big win there. Justin McMillan ended up throwing for 201 yards on 15 of 21 passes for a touchdown. But I tell you what, Army still has a great run game. Their running back ended up having 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it ended up being a classic going all the way to the end, and Tulane was able to pull this one out by 9. So hats off to them being able to get that one, because Army was a 10-win team last year and is always formidable now, just like Air Force. Seems like all the service academies are starting to make a comeback. Yeah,
good, and that's good. Good on them for making that comeback. But Army's been a pretty tough team to play every year the last couple of years. So I thought that game would be a lot closer than it was, but
yeah, it ended up being what it was. Yeah, it was definitely interesting. But one that also is interesting that I don't think anybody really saw too much coming was Oklahoma State losing on the road at Texas Tech. Ended up falling 45-35, and their quarterback, Jet Duffy, that guy just went out and had a game. He ended up being 26-44, 424 yards and 4 touchdowns, torching that Oklahoma State secondary.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's never been one to kind of hang their hat on defense, but they usually play solid enough defense, which is why this is so shocking. But I think the big thing here was Spencer Sanders. He's a young quarterback. He is a sophomore. Sorry, he's a redshirt freshman. Get that
same
right?
thing.
Yeah, same thing, right? But he had 3 interceptions in this game, and that really is what killed Oklahoma State. But they played decently well. On defense, Texas Tech only converted 2 of their 13 third downs.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's
but you gave up almost 600 yards of offense. That doesn't really help you out very much.
It's those Big 12 defenses, man.
But it's those 5 turnovers by Oklahoma State is what kept Texas Tech in the game and in the lead. And if you're Oklahoma State, that's a bad loss right there. Especially when you're trying to kind of get back up into that national spotlight in the Big 12.
Well, the good thing is Oklahoma State will have a chance to redeem itself next week against a rebounding Baylor team that's been able to show that it can start to win games as well. So it definitely will be interesting going forward from there. Looking at our next game, though, was one of the big ticket ones for the early afternoon games. Auburn traveling into the Swamp to take on the Gators.
That place, the Swamp, was rocking.
Oh,
it was rocking like none have heard in this generation.
No, for real. Since the Tim Tebow days, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, it was funny because one of the local sports writers, Mike Bianchi.
Oh, Mike Bianchi, Orlando Sentinel.
Orlando Sentinel. He was there in Gainesville, and of course we follow him on Twitter. And he was talking about for the younger kids that this is what the Swamp always used to sound like.
Oh, yeah.
They got up for that game, and Kyle Trask said it when he came in the Kentucky game in relief of Felipe Franks. Kyle Trask, the kid's a real deal.
Oh, he is. Absolutely. And Trask ended up being 19 of 31, 234 yards and 2 touchdowns, and had a scary knee injury looked like he was going to have, but still was able to come back and get, believe it or not, the game-sealing reception to end this one against Auburn. It was a truly, truly magical game, though.
Yeah, they tried to get the run game going to keep the ball out of Bo Nix's hands, and LaMichael Pirine wasn't doing well until he ripped off that 88-yard touchdown.
That was a sick run.
That was quite the run, but he ended up with 130 yards and a touchdown on only 14 carries.
Yeah, it was a great game, really great game. But even more surprising was Freddie Swan, the wide receiver for Florida, had 146 yards and a touchdown on only 6 receptions.
Hats off to the Florida defense. They got 3 picks out of Bo Nix. They only gave up 145 yards to him. Mm-hmm. They held Auburn to 2 third down conversions on 14 attempts.
That's crazy.
2 and 14 on third downs, only allowing 12 first downs, gave up under 300 yards, and averaged 4 yards a play.
That's absolutely insane.
Yikes.
And the big thing I said going into this game is that I feel, and why I picked Florida to win this, and we were even talking about this a little bit, was that Bo Nix being a freshman quarterback, first-year starter, coming into the Swamp, which doesn't matter how good or bad the Gators are. That is always a hard place to play.
Absolutely.
And went in there, and he tried to sling it the best he could, but the Swamp was a-rocking, and that defense came a-knocking.
Yeah, they got to be careful. Florida had 4 turnovers in this game, but so did Auburn. 9 penalties for Auburn is really also what kind of helped do them in. But Florida, the way you're going to win and run this gauntlet that you're about to have in the SEC is you got to do 2 things. You got to be able to run the ball and control the clock, and that's exactly what they did against Auburn. And if an interesting question was posed, what if, hypothetically, Florida goes undefeated through the SEC?
Ooh, well, the thing you have to look at is that they still have to play LSU next week, which right now I think is the hottest team in the SEC with Joe Burrow.
I think they're arguably, and I've already said this since the Texas game, Joe Burrow is my Heisman right now.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I have to agree. Joe Burrow is on fire. Better than Jalen Hurts, better than Tua Tagovailoa, better than Jonathan Taylor. He's better than all of them. He is the Heisman frontrunner in my eyes as well. And they have to go on the road and play in Death Valley next week and take on this very vaunted LSU offense under Ed Orgeron, who's been able to turn this program completely around from what Les Miles left it as. So looking at what they've been able to do, especially offensively, which we'll get into a little bit later because LSU has broken some records now with their quarterback. Florida's going to have to run through LSU, then go on the road to take on South Carolina, which that's going to be a very chippy affair given Muschamp.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then turn around and take on Georgia in the biggest outdoor cocktail party up in Jacksonville, and that's going to be the matchup. They win those 3 games, they go undefeated because Vanderbilt ain't going to be able to hold a candle to them. Nope. Missouri ain't going to be able to hang with them.
Missouri gives them fits when they go to Missouri, though. When
they do.
When they travel to Missouri, Missouri gives them fits while they're at home.
But the thing I look at is that Kelly Bryant now is kind of dinged up and ended up sitting out the second half of their game this week. So depending upon his health come that game, that might not even be an option anymore. And this could end up just being a big dominant win. And then you end the game at home against Florida State, which, it's FSU.
It's Florida State this year.
Exactly. So if Florida's able to run the entire gauntlet and be able to beat a very talented LSU and a very talented Georgia team, honestly, you have to consider that the Gators might be able to knock off Alabama in an SEC title game.
I think if they run that and they get through the Georgia game and they win, beat LSU, beat South Carolina, beat Georgia, I think they're number 1 or 2.
Oh, my gosh.
They have to be Georgia's number 3.
You just beat number 7. You're going to end up beating number 5.
If they beat number 5
and number 3, yeah, they have a very strong case to be number 1.
You got to put them at least number 2, possibly even number 1.
Yeah, you'd have to put them up there because even with Clemson, they've had their struggles lately, and now they're in an idle week. Alabama's been kind of in cruise mode, but who have they really played? So looking at it, Florida might be the team to beat in the SEC right now.
That's so surprising to hear.
So surprised,
surprising.
especially with a quarterback that we didn't think was going to be the starter at this point.
Absolutely. But that's a huge win for Florida at home on homecoming. Game day was there.
Game
that place
day
was rocking.
Yeah, it was crazy. But looking at some of our other games, Air Force ended up traveling out to take on the Naval Academy, which we both took Air Force, but Navy, being Navy, ended up coming out and winning this one 34-25. And you can never count out Navy in any game, I feel like, anymore.
Absolutely not. You can't really look at it, especially you got the academies there fighting. Those are always fun games to watch. Those are really entertaining. A lot of passion, a lot of pride on the line.
Oh yeah, and they're always battling for the Commanders and Chiefs trophy. So always a lot going on with that type of rivalry.
Yep.
But looking at a big one that I thought ended up being a little surprising early on was Texas traveling out to West Virginia, and West Virginia was giving Texas some fits to start out with.
Well, Texas was missing a handful of their starters in the secondary before this game. They were either sitting out for injury or other reasons, but you could tell because West Virginia had a field day. Austin Kendall, their junior quarterback, 367 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he did throw 4 picks. So that kind of what kind of did them in.
Right.
And Texas, I give him credit. It's a tough environment. Ellinger didn't play great, but he didn't do bad either. He accounted for 4 touchdowns. He had 2 rushing scores and 2 throwing. And
he also had a little bit of help, though, in his backfield with Rashawn Johnson, who had 21 carries for 121 yards. So definitely helped take a little bit of pressure off. But this game was very back and forth, and Texas just exploded in the fourth quarter for 21 points to be able to start pulling away and win this one by 11.
Yeah, 10 penalties did not help Texas's cause either to keep that game a little bit closer than they probably would have liked. But a win is a win, and they're 4-1.
And the big thing is they're 4-1 and on a win heading into next week's Red River rivalry.
Ooh, that's going to be that's a statement game right there.
Oh yeah.
If you think that you're back, prove it. You're going up against a juggernaut.
Well, don't forget who won that game last year.
Remind me and remind the listeners.
That's right. The Hook'em Horns ended up coming out real hardcore.
Horns down, what?
Horns down for what? Anyways, but no, it's definitely going to be a great matchup come next week, and we'll definitely have a lot of coverage going into that game. It's going to be really exciting. But another one that was real surprising and was really so tough to call was Baylor and Kansas State. Kansas State being the home team and was favored by 2 in the line, but Baylor ended up coming out and smacking them in the mouth and showing that their win last week was no fluke, and they ended up winning this one 31-12.
Yeah, they moved the ball pretty well. They were scoring in chunk plays. I mean, they lost the time of possession battle by quite a bit.
Oh, yes.
And they only had 9 third down opportunities the whole game.
That's surprising.
But they still got 426 yards of offense, almost 300 of that in passing. They were averaging, get this, 11 yards per pass.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
No turnovers.
Yikes. That's the big thing. And something I always learned when I played football, you can eliminate turnovers. You can always put yourself in a great position to win a game. So definitely they came out. Now Baylor, who after all the scandals and all the crazy turnover and players leaving and all these things, Baylor's 5-0 in the Big 12. They are undefeated.
And they have big wins. Kansas State has been ranked earlier this year. They beat Iowa State. They were ranked earlier this year.
And run a rebound themselves.
Yeah, and they're on a rebound themselves from their all their scandals they've had the last couple of years. But
the big thing,
who else did they beat?
Well, nobody really
they had a bunch of
UTSA, Rice, and was it SFA? But
they got quite a gauntlet coming up though. They got
that's the thing.
Texas Tech, who just upset Oklahoma State. Then they play at Oklahoma State. A couple weeks later, TCU, Oklahoma, Texas, back to back to back. That's
it's going to be really tough. And if Baylor can survive any part of that slate, you might have to look at the Bears as a team that might start contending in the coming years for the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. We'll see how that one works out. But looking at some of the other games, we had your Western Michigan traveling to Ohio to take on Toledo. How'd that work out for you?
Did Bill Cubitt come out of retirement and take control of this program again? I forget because Tim Lester is basically Bill Cubitt Jr. This guy.
Oh man.
This guy. I'm just so frustrated being an alumni there. It is. I hate I hate to do that. I hate to throw people under the bus like that, but I am unapologetically throwing Coach Lester under the bus yet again, week in and week out. They got down on the road. The classic way that Western Michigan football program has been is they get blown out in games against Power 5 teams. Mm-hmm. Check. That's a Bill Cubit thing. Check. You lose conference games on the road. You have a bad road conference record. Check. You get not only lose, but you get in a way manhandled in every facet of the game. Check. Thankful. I mean, they only had 4 penalties, which is crazy, but they're undisciplined. Check. And yeah, I can keep checking boxes, but not really surprised. Again, hopeful that they could turn a page and actually compete for the Mid-American Conference again, like they should. They have enough talent on this team, but yet again, here I am, 0-2 when I pick Western Michigan.
Yeah, and sitting 4th in the West Division of the MAC, so not looking too good for you right now.
No, they'll be a 6-6, 7-5 team by the end of the year, and then Western Michigan will go, oh, hey, nice job, you got a 7-win season. Here's a 5-year extension.
Oh, Jesus. Definitely could happen.
Apparently, we forgot about the fact that we had PJ Fleck for a couple years and actually elevated the program. Weird.
Yeah, funny how those things work out.
Yeah, it's weird how you forget about those couple of years.
Oh, definitely. But luckily, I picked Toledo in this one, so I get the check mark for that one. Hold on. Check. There it is.
Check. There
All right, there it is. But looking at the next game, though, Arizona traveling to Boulder to take on Colorado. This game I was so on the fence for just because I literally was waiting to make my pick. And you remember, I was literally waiting to see what news they were going to say about quarterback Khalil Tate and if he was going to play in this game or not. And thankfully he did, and I'm very glad he did because he had a ballin' game and ended up going out there and just playing his style of game to be able to edge this one out for Arizona. He went 31-41 for 404 yards and 3 touchdowns. Looked absolutely amazing, but they still had to pull this one off late and ended up taking it 35-30. Now Arizona, 4-1. Watch out.
And their only loss is that opening week game on the road at Hawaii, where Hawaii is very tough to play at home. So
yeah,
Arizona's got a chance. Kevin Sumlin's got him playing pretty well finally. I was a little surprised because, like you, I didn't know if Khalil Tate was going to play. Had I known he was going to play, I probably would have picked Arizona, but we didn't know that till late.
Yeah, I remember when you were getting ready to make the graphic too that we post on all of our social media accounts, which you can find at PCN Final Score on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, was that I literally was just waiting for them to make that announcement. I was waiting up until the very last second. And then you were like, I got to get this graphic out. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have confidence he's going to play Arizona. And sure enough, glad I did that, though.
Sure enough, he does.
But yeah, it was a crazy game. And looking at Arizona, they got some winnable games. It really doesn't get tough until late in the season, which I feel like at that point, Arizona's going to have a really good idea of what kind of team they have because they play Washington, who just got upset last night by Stanford. Then they have to play at USC, at Stanford, then at home against Oregon State. All 4 can be very winnable games. And then you get into your tough slate where you have to take on a ranked Oregon, a ranked Utah, and, of course, Arizona State. So I don't know.
Who's been in and out of the polls the last couple of weeks.
Exactly.
But to me, this is one of the tougher schedules in the country remaining. And argue with me all you want.
And I will.
Even the listeners. Washington at home, okay, that's going to be a tough game. Washington's still a good team, even though they got upset. USC at home, tough game. I'm sorry. Yeah, USC at USC.
Yeah, in the LA Coliseum.
Yeah, and Stanford, they're going to Palo Alto. Mm-hmm. They are a tough team, even though they don't have much of an identity this year.
But I think they could be on the comeback, though.
They could be. That's a tough game. Oregon State, that's about the only winnable. That's about the only absolute winnable game I see on this schedule. Mm-hmm. All other 6 games that we just rattled off, all of those are toss-ups to me.
I feel like that with Khalil Tate, as long as they can keep him healthy.
Yeah, except for Oregon and Utah. I think those are losses.
I think Oregon and Utah will definitely end up being losses. Arizona State, it's a rivalry game. Really could go either way, but they have to go to Arizona State for this one. So
yeah, this game hinges on. This team hinges on the health and production of Khalil Tate.
Yeah, it really does. And we'll definitely see how the rest of that ends up turning out for this season. But looking at our night game, starting off with the big one, Michigan State traveling to Columbus to take on Ohio State. Ohio State was favored by 20.5 points.
And covered.
And covered as Ohio State took this one 34-10. Early on, though, it looked like it could be a game, but Ohio State ended up calming themselves down and just ended up going out there and shellacking what was left of Michigan State.
Hats off to Michigan State because your offense looks just as bad as Michigan's.
Hey,
just as bad as Michigan's.
At least you know your in-state rivalry game might actually have a little bit of a chance. You know?
So it's going to be 0-0 in the 17th overtime, and then one team actually might kick a field goal to win the game.
Holy crap. Will it be Michigan State, or are they going to miss it?
Oh, well, they're going to, I mean, I see what you did there. I like it.
Oh, man, it's just crazy. But there was really no doubt in this one. Ohio State is such a much more talented team, and weren't too surprised that they took this one in the horseshoe. Looking at some of our other night games, Vanderbilt traveled down to Mississippi to take on Ole Miss. Ole Miss was favored by 7 and did not disappoint as they more than covered that spread and ended up taking this one 31-6.
Yeah, Ole Miss has had a really up and down year. They're 3-3, but they got
could have been 4-2. Thanks, Pac-12 officials.
Right. The tough loss against Cal. They lost at home, or they lost on the road at Memphis earlier this year. They've had a really up and down year. They're really trying to pull their program back together. But this is a good win for them. It's a good win. Now for Vanderbilt, they're really trying to find an identity. Period. And just in general, and it's not looking good for them.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's only win was against Northern Illinois, which was only a 6-point win at that. Other than that, they've been flat out dominated. They got dominated by Georgia, dominated by Purdue of all teams, absolutely shellacked by LSU. It's just been really bad, and now this one against Ole Miss. Now Vanderbilt does have a game against UNLV that looks like a win, but after that, you really don't have much else going on until your next to last game against East Tennessee State. So Vanderbilt is just another lost season for you.
Yeah, not going to be looking good for that program. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that they're still in the SEC at this point. But, I mean,
go swap them with someone else, right? Or go send them down to
no,
FCS.
Everybody's got to have that easy conference win every year. You got to know Kansas is that team in the Big 12.
I don't know.
Rutgers is that team in the Big 10.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Rutgers is already starting to tank. They redshirted their quarterback and running back for the year, so. Oh, yeah, it's just bad. But looking,
well, I mean, they already got rid of their coaching staff, too. So, I mean, you got to.
Yeah, there's not much left.
Not much left to do after
next thing
that.
you got to do is just throw out the uniform and just say you don't play football anymore.
Or you can just go the UConn route and just get rid of football program, which is what they should do. But one of the other big surprises this week.
Oh, big surprise.
Pittsburgh at Duke. Based on what Duke did to Virginia Tech last week and how Pittsburgh has been so up and down. They beat UCF, and the next week they barely beat Delaware. Of the one of the FCS teams.
Hi, I'm in Delaware.
Hi, I am from Delaware. But so this game was very surprising that Pittsburgh, they're just a gritty team. Narduzzi's got them. He gets them up for games. So, no surprise there. But I'm surprised they won with the 15 penalties they had in this game.
Yeah, it was bad.
They
Real
had
bad.
4 turnovers, but they forced 6 Duke turnovers, which I think was the big key here for this game.
And we haven't seen turnovers like that from Duke in 15 years. Duke's been a program also on the rise recently after literally living in mediocrity for decades, it felt like, on the football program side. Because basketball, they're perfectly fine, but football, they just can't get it together, even though they're in a place that really could help them with that.
This game got really, really interesting down to the end. Duke scored a touchdown with 1.5 minutes to go up 30-26. And Pitt had to march down the field and scored a touchdown with 44 seconds left.
And this was after a furious Duke comeback in the fourth quarter altogether where they scored 20 points in the fourth. It was just absolutely crazy. So, yeah, crazy that Pittsburgh was able to pull this off. And now Pittsburgh, who looked like they were going to end up being cellar dwellers, are now 4-2.
Yeah, Duke scoring 4 unanswered touchdowns, 4 straight touchdowns, and then Pittsburgh pulling it out at the end. Yeah, 4-2. It's starting to look, their season's starting to look up. Narduzzi maybe finally building a program there.
And you know what's crazy is you look at Pitt's schedule the rest of the way. They play at Syracuse, at home against Miami, at Georgia Tech, at home against North Carolina, at Virginia Tech, and at home against Boston College. All 6 games absolutely winnable by them.
And the funny part about all this schedule is all these games are toss-ups.
Every last one.
Except for maybe Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is not good this year.
Honestly, I might have to put Miami in that classification as well.
Yeah, and it's at home. Yeah, all these games, but that's kind of to our point is
exactly.
All these games on the remaining schedule are all toss-ups because you have no idea what you're getting out of the bottom of the ACC.
Because it's always a toss-up.
Yeah, outside of Clemson, that's really outside of Clemson, everything else is a toss-up in the ACC this year.
Absolutely, I have to agree. And looking at some of the rest of the games that we have, not too much left on here. Some of the late games, Cal traveled up to Oregon to take on the Ducks, ended up having a real big defensive battle, which no one really expected. We thought there would be a lot more offense in this, but Oregon ended up squeaking this one out 17-7.
7-0 at halftime. Cal was up 7-0 at halftime.
What a boring game.
I actually had a chance to watch a handful of plays in this game. But I mean, it's an ugly win, but if you're Oregon, you just got to keep winning. Got to keep winning if you want to be in the conversation for the Pac-12 championship.
And Justin Herbert looked kind of pedestrian as well. Went 20 of 33, 214 yards and a touchdown. Definitely not hitting the Heisman caliber that he was touted to be going into the season. But he's definitely going to have to try and turn it around and prove himself the rest of the way if he wants to be in the conversation.
Yeah, Cal's defense has been pretty good throughout this season. In Oregon, having their offense, they have themselves a good defense. They played well against Auburn in the opener, but penalties really killed both of these teams. Oregon had 8, and Cal had 11.
Absolutely crazy.
Ugly game.
Yeah, very ugly game, which also showed how the score turned out the way it was. It just was crazy all the way around. But Oregon winning their 4th straight after losing that opener against Auburn. So definitely we'll see what Oregon's able to put together the rest of the way. But looking at our last game, which was our latest game, was the 9 p.m. game. Oregon State traveling on down to UCLA, who was favored by 5.5 in this. But Oregon State with the shocker, pulling this one out 48-31. Who would have thought that would have happened?
And they did it after losing the time of possession battle. They were outgained in almost every category by UCLA. But the play of their quarterback, Jake Lutton, senior, he's a redshirt senior. This kid played really, really well. He had 5 touchdowns, 285 yards passing.
Yeah, and they blew up for 21 points alone in the first quarter to take a huge lead on UCLA early, which ended up being a lot of the deciding factor in this. And they just played strong throughout, even with Artavis Pierce, who had 21 carries, 119 yards, and a touchdown on the ground for Oregon State. The Beavers just came ready to play.
That's very unlike Chip Kelly's teams as well. They just not kind of show up early. Usually they're out the gate, hit the ground running. So you got to really wonder what's going on for Chip Kelly's teams.
I think Chip Kelly's going to end up retiring in the next 5 years. I'm calling it now. I honestly think he's kind of washed up as a coach at this point. As we've seen, I feel like in this game, you saw how they played against Washington State, where they did have the furious comeback, but Chip Kelly teams always try to play fast. You remember way back in the Oregon days how great those teams were because they were predicated on speed, and more speed, and hold the accelerator down through the floor and see what you can do. And these teams don't seem that way. They don't have the talent level to be able to keep up that style of Chip Kelly offense. Even when he was in the NFL, he tried that and found some success, even though he kind of wore down those old vets a little bit quicker than you can these college kids. But at the end of the day, I just don't think Chip Kelly still has it anymore.
And it's funny because there's articles on CBS Sports and saying that Oregon State is no longer the worst team in the Pac-12. Yikes!
Sadly, I have to agree with it.
Yeah, if you're Chip Kelly, man, that's not the designation you want for your team.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But looking at some of our game ball top performers of the week, I'm gonna have to start out with my good old tried and true, and I love him to death. That's Notre Dame quarterback Ian Book. Now I know they were playing Bowling Green and then blowing them out 52-0. But this is what Notre Dame needed. They needed a quarterback who's going to come out and be surgical. He ended up going 16 of 20, 261 yards, and 5 touchdowns in only 3 quarters of play, and looked surgical, which is something Notre Dame is going to need going forward.
Well, it helps when you when you schedule these cupcakes, you expect games like this out of your starters.
I mean, our old defensive coordinator Van Gorder was running their defense. I thought maybe it'd be a little bit of a game.
But it's a great game nonetheless. It's a big game. Basically, they're just tuning up for when they play Michigan in a couple weeks. And you've got USC next, correct?
Yep, we got USC next week at home, then a bye, and then the Wolverines.
That game against USC is going to be really interesting depending on who their quarterback is that comes out of there.
I don't think it'll matter against that Notre Dame defense, though. But who do you got for your game ball?
My first game ball goes to the Michigan defense that bailed out the Wolverines. They allowed only 1 yard rushing against number 14 Iowa and collected 8 sacks on Stanley, the quarterback for Iowa. They played a hell of a game. They carried that team. And Iowa tried to replicate what Wisconsin did, and clearly did not work.
Yeah. Iowa is no Wisconsin, flat out. But looking at some of our other game ball top performers, LSU quarterback Joe Burrow, who went out and beat Utah State 42-6, played absolutely out of his mind. Went 27-38, 344 yards, 5 touchdowns against 1 interception, which was off a tip pass, by the way. So not his fault. But he's also the first LSU quarterback to throw 300 or more yards in 4 straight games. And to keep in mind, he's only finished 1/4 quarter this season.
I'm telling you, that's my top Heisman candidate right now. He's been playing so well all year. Played a great game at Texas. And yeah, they haven't played anybody since, but that's kind of what you do if you are in the SEC. You schedule cupcake teams when you can. Mm-hmm. Maybe play one big high-profile game early in the year, and then you got to get through your grueling conference schedule. But my next game ball goes to Burrow's teammate, wide receiver Justin Jefferson at LSU. He had 9 receptions, 155 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns in that 42-6 win over Utah State.
Making Joe Burrow look great. And just to throw it out there hasn't been an LSU player to win the Heisman since 1959 when Billy Cannon did it at halfback. So it would be pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. But looking at my next game ball winner, that's Wisconsin running back Jonathan Taylor, who went out and rushed 19 times for 186 yards and 4 touchdowns, 9.8 per rush average when they beat Kent State 48-0. And let's not forget, he also had 3 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown, and most of this was by halftime. I
think he's one of the other top Heisman candidates, and he's not, because he's a running back, he's not in the conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that to win the Heisman, you have to be a quarterback now at a high-profile school. So it really sucks.
Yeah, and it does really suck because there actually hasn't been a running back to win the Heisman since Derrick Henry in 2015.
Derrick Henry,
yeah, it's been 3 straight quarterbacks, two of which have been from Oklahoma. So looking, who do you got for your next game ball? My
next game ball is going to Oklahoma State running back Chuba Hubbard. Seems like he's in this every week for me just because of how well he runs the football. He had 156 yards and 3 touchdowns in that 10-point loss at Texas Tech.
Such a bad one. But looking at my last one, I have Khalil Tate, Arizona quarterback, who beat Colorado 35-30. He did go 31-41, 404 yards, 3 touchdowns, added 4 more rushes for 23 yards, and is literally, I think, the heartbeat of this team at this point. Watch out for him going forward.
He goes, or as the team goes, he goes.
Exactly.
My last game ball goes to Minnesota running back Rodney Smith. He had 211 yards rushing, averaged 8.8 yards a carry in that 40-17 home win over Illinois to improve Minnesota to 5-0. Row the boat, baby. You can't see this, but I'm rowing the boat right now.
He's rowing it hard. I see it. I can attest to it, fans.
I've been on the Fleck bandwagon ever since he showed up to Western Michigan.
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely awesome. Now, at this point, though, we're going to take a look at our current top 10. And to be able to see what we have beyond our top 10, you'll just have to check out our social media account for Final Score a little bit later at PCN Final Score on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So definitely make sure you check out that later to see both of our full top 25s. But who do you got at number 1?
I'm keeping Alabama at number 1. They were idle this week, but they're still one of the best teams in the country, and no other team really had a big statement win other than maybe Ohio State. Mm-hmm. But I still got them at number 1.
Yeah, I have to agree. Alabama's still number one, even in an idle week. Alabama is just playing out of their mind, and it's a Nick Saban-led team. You can never count them out in any game, and it seems like the only time they ever lose is when it's against the best of the best competition. So, yes, Alabama's still number one for me as well.
Number 2, I got Georgia. They won at Tennessee 43-14. My top 5 hasn't really changed since last week, but I got Georgia at number 2.
At number 2, I have Clemson. Even though they were idle this week, they still are the defending champions, and I still think they are a great team. Even with that scare to North Carolina, they still were able to pull off the win. But I do have them fall to number 2 because of that as well. Clemson for me.
Number 3, I have LSU. LSU destroyed Utah State at home. I think they're one of the best. I think they're one of the best teams in the country by far. I could argue to put LSU even over Georgia. Get a lot of hate for it, but I think I could even argue to put LSU in that top 2 conversation.
Oh, yeah, you definitely could at this point. At number 3, I still have Georgia. Georgia's been hanging in there nice and tough after their win, especially at Tennessee. Tennessee did take an early lead against them, but Georgia showed why they are the number 3 team in the country. Ended up clamping it down and winning at 43-14. And Jake Fromm, man, got that swagger. I like it.
Number 4, I got Ohio State. They had a huge win against Michigan State at home. They're by far and away the best team in the Big Ten right now. The only other team that could come close is Penn State, but big win, and they're definitely a top 5 team in my opinion.
Definitely. My number 4, LSU, killing it against Utah State 42-6. Joe Burrow, like we just mentioned a little bit earlier, probably the Heisman leader at this point, just playing out of his mind under Ed Orgeron. Definitely watch out for LSU because they might end up taking and stealing this SEC.
Rounding up my top 5, I got Oklahoma, who had the big 45-20 win at Kansas. This whole top 5 is really tough to judge. I mean, you got Jalen Hurts, who's playing so well, playing under Lincoln Riley, and potentially might have back-to-back Oklahoma quarterbacks win the Heisman. It's a possibility.
It's very, very possible because for me at number 6, or wait, where am I at now?
You're
number
at
5. Sorry, I'm at 5 now. Ohio State had that win against Michigan State 34-10. Statement win with Justin Fields slinging that ball like no tomorrow in the horseshoe. But I got some words about Oklahoma here in a moment. Who you got at 6?
My number 6, I got Clemson. I dropped them down. I dropped them down from number 1 after they barely beat UNC. They did not look good whatsoever. They were idle this week, so there's no up or down they can go from here for me.
Just don't travel to the state of South Carolina. That's all I got to say right now. At number 6, though, I have Oklahoma, who did have that win against Kansas. But here's the thing I noticed about Oklahoma in this game is that Kansas is a Les Miles-led team, but this game was a lot closer going into halftime. Now, second half, Oklahoma blew it open a little bit, but Jalen Hurts wasn't quite on point. And the Kansas quarterback actually outgained Jalen Hurts in a lot of categories. So, I don't know. We got to kind of see what's going on with Oklahoma, especially going into the Red River rivalry. But did you see Oklahoma have to be, 4th and goal from the 50?
I did see that.
It's ridiculous.
First and goal was from like the 5 or the 4.
Yes.
And then
it was like on the 30 and then the 45. It was ridiculous. Who you got? Where are we at now? I don't even know.
Number 7. We're at
number 7. We're at number 7, sir.
I got Florida. I moved Florida up a couple spots. They're at number 7. That's a huge win against Auburn. You could arguably try to throw them into the top 6, but even then, I can't see them any better than any of the other top 6 teams. So this is about the highest they can go for me right now.
Yeah, at number 7, I also have Florida. I think that was a great statement win against Auburn. I jumped them over Notre Dame and Wisconsin because they were playing cupcakes, honestly. So for Florida to go out and do what they did at home against Auburn was truly magical, and now they are undefeated for the first time in quite a number of years. But like I have to agree with you, this is the highest they can go right now, but next week could really tell us something.
That could really tell us something. At number 8, I've got your Notre Dame Fighting Irish at 4-1. They had a huge win against Bowling Green. Again, this is about as high as I think they can go at this current point, but you got a couple of tough games coming up in the next couple weeks that could definitely affect this ranking.
Oh, it absolutely could, and we'll see how that goes. At number 8, I have Wisconsin, who had that big game against Kent State, won 48-0 behind the great legs of Jonathan Taylor, who's probably the only realistic running back Heisman hopeful at this point. Wisconsin stays undefeated. See where it go from here.
At 9 and 10, I got a pair of Big Ten teams. 9, I've got Wisconsin. 10, I've got Penn State. I think all of these teams are by far and above the best 10 teams in the country right now. Wisconsin, I think they're going to go pretty much undefeated until the Big Ten championship game. Penn State, they're in a tough division. You got Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, all to play. So this is going to be a tough statement type next couple weeks for Penn State. Definitely
will be. And for my 9 and 10, I have Notre Dame at 9. I kind of kept them right where they've been before just because Bowling Green, not a big honestly a real big hurdle for Notre Dame, especially with how they've been playing lately. They definitely have already solidified themselves as a really good top 10 team. That with how Florida played and Wisconsin's been playing, it just seemed natural to kind of just leave them there for the moment, at least until we get through USC and possibly even Michigan. So we'll definitely see what happens there. And at 10, Penn State. Penn State debuts in the top 10 for me as well. Looking great against Purdue, winning 35-7. And Penn State, you really are going to have to look out for in the Big Ten.
Man. And we're gonna release the rest of our top 25s either today, Sunday, or tomorrow on Monday. So be on the lookout for those at PCN Final Score on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
That's right. And moving forward, we do have a little bit of news we need to talk about when it comes to college football. A lot of craziness has been happening in the past week or so, especially with California Governor Gavin Newsom signing the Fair Pay to Play Act this past Monday, which will now go into effect January 1st, 2023.
And he did this on Uninterrupted, which is the LeBron James-led
the
production.
Shop. Yeah, whatever he calls it.
Whatever it's called. But he did that on there. He had a host of other athletes that were around him, kind of, there for the signing of the bill, I guess. Mm-hmm. But this bill will go into effect in 2023. It'll allow the athletes to sign an agent/representative to help make money off of their image, name, and likenesses through endorsement deals that are outside of their university and the NCAA.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really, really big for a number of reasons. And because of this, there's already been a shift that we're now seeing because similar bills have now been introduced or are being drafted in other states like Florida, Illinois, Colorado, Kentucky, Nevada, New York, among others. And this is turning into a very interesting situation that the NCAA can truly not ignore.
And even some people are going as far as trying to make it on the federal level. So former Ohio State receiver and current Congressman Anthony Gonzalez is proposing a bill that amounts to a federal level version of the Fair Pay to Play Act. Absolutely, there's no ignoring this if you're the NCAA, and they've had chances over the last 10 years to try to fix this, but of course, you've got all those old hats in the positions of power, and they just want to keep things the same. They want to make as much money off these kids as they possibly can. And I'm glad that this is coming into play, but this is a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword in some ways, but the big thing that I look at with this is that you've been seeing these universities and the NCAA profiting not just millions, billions of dollars off of these kids who are not receiving anything in return but tuition, which does make sense, but what are they really getting outside of that? Because by NCAA bylaws, these kids are not allowed to hold jobs. They're not allowed to make money even off of things that are themselves. I remember most notably the UCF kicker who had his own YouTube channel that was not affiliated with anything he was doing in athletics, that he was making money on, that the NCAA slapped him for because he was just simply making money. And that's what's really ridiculous because guess what? Not all families have deep pockets. A lot of these kids come from more downtrodden neighborhoods or from places of poverty that aren't able to uphold those types of financial needs. And you have to find a realistic way to be able to give these kids an opportunity to be able to sustain a lifestyle of any kind.
And even Leonard Fournette, his last year at LSU, he tried to sell his game-worn equipment, jerseys, things like that, but give them to charity. And the NCAA basically said, no, you can't do that either. And he said, screw you, I'm doing it anyway. Which is, hats off to him. Congratulations for doing that. That was fantastic.
It kind of reminds me of the same thing about like the Heisman Trust, who makes everybody sign an agreement to where they will not sell that trophy when they receive it. Which started...
That actually makes sense, though.
That does make sense to an extent because it is an award. But with the NCAA, why are you going to try and hold kids from being able to basically keep, in a lot of ways, alive? Because really, when you say tuition, oh yeah, you're getting tuition paid, you're getting this covered. What does that really cover? Let's take a look at that. That covers your actual expenses for your tuition, your books, in some cases, your dormitory if you're living on campus. If you're living off campus, you're up Craps Creek. So what are you left with outside of that? There's nothing to help you with food. except for what you might get during team meetings or, after practice. You're not having anything covered for if you have a vehicle that you have on campus or the permitting for that vehicle to be able to park it on campus.
The food is covered in food plans are covered in scholarships.
Not 100%. And that also is more recent as well, because you do remember when they had the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament, mind you. We had one of the top players that was on one of the Final Four teams who literally said he had NCAA officials breathing down his neck because he was trying to eat a bagel. That's covered by the NCAA bylaws at that point. But if he would put cream cheese on it, it's not. And I find that utterly ridiculous. And when that came to light, the NCAA started changing all their bylaws over to make it a lot more inclusive. And I think it's just more systemic of a larger issue of the NCAA really trying to keep these kids under thumb, because I think the NCAA at this point has realized this has been a very fragile system to begin with for them to be able to reap all this money, all these rewards without really giving much to these players outside of tuition, quote unquote. You can't see me on air, but I'm hitting air quotes hard right now.
Well, okay. I don't want to dive in too deep this because we've already been almost an hour into the show.
I know. We're going to take a commercial after this.
Yeah. So what the thing is with this, okay, if you want to stop at tuition, think about it. If these kids weren't playing college football or college basketball, because that's what really this is revolved around.
Right. Most of the other athletics don't get enough attention or money.
The quote non-revenue generating sports, which is everything else, those schools do get a lot of their funding from these money revenue generating sports. Okay. So that's the double-edged sword. If you kind of cut that stuff, these sports are going to suffer too. But the kids that play college football or college basketball, if they don't get a full ride scholarship to go to these schools, are they going to go on their own? No, they're not, because probably if they can't afford it, if they can't afford these things because of where they come from, they can't afford to go to the school anyway. So you're still in the same situation.
Essentially.
But the problem that I have with the rule is that they won't allow them to make money on the side, have jobs, and that's what you were talking about.
Right.
Is that part I agree with. They should be able to at least hold a second job or something, because how many kids, I know a handful of people that I went to college with that were working a job or two while they were doing a full load of school, which that right there,
that's hard enough already.
That's already really hard. But then you throw in, you're going to class and all the demands that are there for college athletics.
Yeah, all the
even
workouts,
for non-generating school, or
practice.
even for non-revenue generating sports.
Yeah. It's
really, really tough. It's very tough for college athletes. So I just don't like the fact that they said you can't make money or can't do this kind of stuff. That's what really this law is only going to affect the top college football athletes that are already going to go in the NFL.
I say yes and no, only because while if you look at it on a more of a national stage, I absolutely agree. Having endorsement deals, say, from entities like Nike or Gatorade or even Wheaties, those will definitely affect top athletes. But if you look at it on a smaller scale, because not all the big companies run everything when it comes to sponsorships and endorsements. You look at the smaller scale, say, more local, whether it be statewide or even countywide, car dealerships, kind of stuff. Small restaurants, even stuff like that might be able to try and pull off a little bit of an endorsement deal or advertising agreement with a player. Especially if you say you have these small schools that are in places where there might not be a big school, like Idaho. Perfect example. Say Idaho Potato wants to go and sponsor the best Idaho quarterback there is.
Oh, they're going to go to Boise State.
Well,
but anyway,
you know what I mean. Though. You know what I mean.
Your point.
It opens up more opportunities even for the lower end.
Right, and we were talking about this. This is not going to affect college basketball players because think of the
that's the one and done rule.
Well, and the NBA is negotiating that with their next CBA that they're going to get rid of the one and done rule, which that's going to affect college basketball already. Your Zions are not going to play in college basketball anymore. They're going straight to the NBA, and that's why they've been strengthening their G League for the last couple of years, because that's going to be their avenue. So this is not going to worry. College basketball, the March Madness tournament is still going to make a ton of money. So this is not going to be affecting these kids right here.
Well, that and kids were already starting to go outside of the realm and travel overseas anyways to play and try and make money instead of going to college anyways. So I feel this was kind of a move NBA was going to have to make anyways.
I think this bill, this is going to affect college football, and I think it was generated at college football versus anything else.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, 100% agree.
Because college basketball, that's changing already. That's going to change. So that I don't think this affects that at all.
And what's crazy is I think basketball's always had a more of a control in these kind of situations because of how the sport is set up, with the fact that they've always had either straight from high school to pro or the one and done system, to where it opens that up. With college football, though, you have to spend at least 3 years with a university to be able to make that next step. And that, which for a lot of reasons, why they do that, mainly because of the talent level. A lot of guys in NFL are huge and fast and will hit you harder than, a Mack truck coming at you at 80 miles an hour. So it makes a little bit of sense. But the one thing I think that aggravates me more than anything in this entire situation is the stance by the NCAA. The NCAA president even came out recently and said that California passing this act essentially makes them employees of the university. What? No, it doesn't. They don't get any money from the university for this. They don't get money from the NCAA for this. This is them negotiating deals outside of the university and outside of the NCAA to try and keep their life sustained. Now, if they get a little bit of popularity and make some money at it, good for them. Why would you want that not for them? Because at the end of the day, it goes to overall success. You're able to make something happen for yourself. Bravo. Bravo.
The NCAA is like the USSR before they crumbled.
I have to agree.
The NCAA, that's what they are. They are Mother Russia before they crumbled.
Oh,
that's exactly what's going on.
And the NCAA president is Putin.
They're trying to hold it together right now.
Oh my gosh. No, I have to agree. And that's what's sad is that they're clinging at every way they can to hold it all together. And they're not going to be able to, because they, like I said earlier, they knew this was a fragile system to begin with. Once people started coming to light that, hey, this isn't really that fair to these athletes, maybe they need to make some money. It all started really Ed O'Bannon lawsuit. That's where a lot of this started to really start catching traction. And you know what else makes this interesting? And this is where I think a lot of players are going to start being able to start making money regardless. Remember what happened as part of the outcome of the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit?
Refresh our memories.
The biggest thing that happened was that EA Sports was no longer allowed to license with the universities and colleges for these athletes' likenesses, names, so on and so forth, to be able to use them in the video game, which scrapped the video game as a whole. At this point, though, with this kind of act going into play, EA Sports can bypass the universities. They can bypass the NCAA, unless they obviously want to license with the university to get their logos and stadiums. But now you can go directly to the player and get the player and contract with them without having to go through the middleman.
We're never going to see NCAA anymore.
I think we will.
No, we won't.
I think we will.
So here's what's going to happen.
Because you don't need the NCAA at that point either.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you
individually license every university and then go to each individual player. They're not going to get a lot of money because they're already paying millions to the universities for the licensing. But say per year, we're going to give you, say, $2,000 to use your likeness for this game.
So, but what your argument said is they can bypass the universities and the NCAA. Mm-hmm. You're going to go to every player and you're going to make up these fictitious teams. So you can put Jalen Hurts on the team?
I mean, it's already happening with a Canadian developer who's making their own version of a college football game.
How's that game working out for him?
Well, it hasn't released anywhere near.
It's tanking. Because I was interested in that game.
Definitely. But we're talking about EA Sports here, who already has the programming, already has all the development team, has the resources to make it happen.
They could have still been putting out NCAA games for the last couple of years.
Well, they could have, but there's the thing that you run into with a slippery slope with that is that you have one player that has anything, even if it's randomly generated, that comes anywhere near a likeness of an actual in-life player, boom, you're sued again. And that's the issue you run into.
It's not that hard to change.
No,
that's not that hard to change. It's like the argument that I made with you about yesterday. We're talking about when Tim Tebow was like, all the 15 jerseys that were walking around, I know that was me. No, it's not. There's no name on the back. That's not you.
Oh, it's just like my number 3 Notre Dame jersey I wear all the time. That's a Darius Walker jersey, technically speaking, because it's from the 03 season, but you could argue it's Joe Montana, too.
A number 2 Michigan jersey or a number 10 Michigan jersey. Who's that? I don't know. There's no name on the back. I don't know who that is. Mm-hmm. That's what the argument that the schools could make.
And that's how the schools will still be able to make money off their own apparel.
They're still going to do it. So
of course.
This argument is moot for players. It just makes no sense. It's the outside stuff that we've been talking about is where they're going to make money.
Definitely.
And it's the game. I still don't think we're going to see it because players are going to want too much money to get their likeness in the game. So you're still back to square one.
I think some players wouldn't mind, some players will. And I think that's the thing you're going to run into. Some people are going to think they're worth more. Some people won't think they're worth that much and really won't care because they just want to see themselves in a video game. And that was a big argument after that lawsuit as well, is that players were we're so happy that this happened this way.
What if the schools, since they're independent entities, what if the schools, even after these laws go through, say, you know what? We don't want you paying our players on this team, so we're not going to sign you our likeness for this college football game.
I mean, that could happen, but here's the thing you run into is that a lot of these schools are state-funded, government-funded schools. So if they pass this law, I mean, why would you turn up an opportunity to make millions of dollars?
Just because it's signed doesn't mean you have to follow it.
That's true, but
enforce it.
But we're also talking about financial feasibility of these schools to be able to bring in revenue. And now you're losing a certain amount of revenue because of this. Why not try to make it back with licensing?
They're not losing revenue.
Oh, they'll lose a certain amount.
Not a lot.
Not a lot, but why not make up for it anyways with licensing agreements of your own?
If it's that slim of a margin and the risk is higher than the reward, I wouldn't do it if I was a school.
Yeah, but if you're a school who's going to have, say, EA Sports throwing millions of dollars at you, why wouldn't you? What reasonable reason would you have to say no?
What reason do you have to say yes?
Making money, which is what all this is about.
They're already going to be making enough money because once this comes into play, if they can make money off their name, likeness, image, things like that, you're still going to see what you see now in college football, where all this money gets dumped into the school by donors to upgrade facilities and all that. And
which has been running rampant lately. Yeah,
and I mean, basically that's the offset of paying players is by giving them all these facilities, and so you still get all the top 5-star recruits go to Alabama or go to Clemson or go to Ohio State or LSU.
Speaking of renovations, did you see what LSU did to their locker room?
Yeah. That
was nice. It's better than NFL locker rooms, I swear. But, we'll definitely see how a lot of this plays out. Once a federal bill goes through, though, I think that will end up being not necessarily a death penalty to the NCAA, but it's going to hurt them a lot, and they're going to have to change their whole approach.
Which they won't. And I don't think this bill is going to change as much as people think it will. I really don't. I really don't. The only way it's going to change is if all the schools or the conferences, which is why some of these conferences have been building up their 16 teams, 14 teams. The only way it'll change is if the power conferences go, hey, NCAA, thanks but no thanks. We're going to do our own thing. We're breaking away from you. And now, only then will you see the massive change that everybody wants.
And that could end up being one of the next steps after all this, too, though. So definitely something we're going to have to see. They did say, though, if the federal bill goes through, the soonest it would probably go into effect would be within the next couple of years, probably preceding a lot of these state bills. So we'll definitely see how a lot of this works out. It's going to be a crazy situation. So definitely make sure that you keep up with Final Score on all of our social media outlets at PCN Final Score on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, because we're definitely going to have a lot more to talk about this. But at this time, though, it is time for us to take a little bit of a break because, man, that was a lot of stuff to cover. So we're going to definitely be right back. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the NFL and this past week's Thursday night game, which ended up being an absolute classic. And then we're going to take a look at some of the games today. So definitely make sure that you stay with us. We'll be right back.
The following support and sponsor Podcast City Network. City Limits Tap Room, sports bar in DeLand, Florida, has brew on tap, serve food, the grilled cheese is excellent. For upcoming events, check out City Limits Tap Room on Facebook.com/City Limits Tap Room. Atlantic Sounds has thousands of new and used vinyl records and CDs. If they don't have it, they can order it for you. Same location since 1982. For more updates on what's new, check out Atlantic Sounds on Facebook.com/Atlantic Sounds Vinyl. Sports Sanity Customs have worked with organizations from custom embroidering polo shirts to jerseys for your kids' baseball team. They do it all. Armed with state-of-the-art equipment and an in-house design team, they are equipped to take on your next project. Visit their website to learn more, sportsanitycustoms.com. Visit Sports Sanity Customs on Facebook.com/Sports Sanity Customs. 3Count Design offers a wide range of graphic design products, video, photography and other forms of media. Everything from t-shirt designs to websites. Visit Facebook.com/3Count Design for more. Demo Blast Studios, an explosion of imagination. Original artwork, podcasts, video, apparel and more. Visit DemoBlastStudios.com. Visit Demoblast Studios on Facebook.com/Demoblast Studios, the best family entertainment pro wrestling show in the state of Kentucky. Kentucky's Own Wrestling brings quality family vintage wrestling to a town near you. Kentucky's Own Wrestling offers a ladies division in wrestling and a training school. Kentucky's Own Wrestling is the current longest running Southern promotion. Visit Facebook.com/Somerset Kentucky's Own Wrestling. All supporters and sponsors are brought to you by Podcast City Network.
And we are back here on Final Score with Chris and Craig. Oh man, look at all this craziness. It's back so quickly. But Thursday night football, man, that was a doozy to watch.
Yeah, that was a great game. Seattle and LA came right down to the very end. We were texting between while this game was going on, and it was a great. We actually had a good Thursday night game for once. For once,
because usually these end up being blowouts or just really boring games or what have you. But the Seahawks took a classic at home against the Rams, 30-29, and we saw so much back and forth action and absolute just amazing plays. It was absolutely insane. But looking at some of the stats here, so much craziness. Anyways. The Rams ended up outgaining the Seahawks 477-429. Were dominant through the air, but the Seahawks had a much more balanced attack, being able to rack up 167 rushing yards against 262 passing yards and looked like a very complete offense going forward. Time of possession battle, too, was owned by the Seahawks, who were able to grind it out a lot more. And the big thing you look at, too, turnovers. As we know in the NFL, turnovers can be a killer. Rams had 2 turnovers in this game, 1 fumble, 1 interception. And just they played great football. I tell you what, the Seahawks, you really have to look at, including Russell Wilson, that these might be some of the best teams in the NFC.
Yeah, Seattle is playing. They're playing really well right now. Russell Wilson, I think, he's got to be included in the conversation as a top 5 quarterback.
Absolutely,
especially after this game, what he can do with his feet to extend plays, and he doesn't try to go looking to run all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's always looking downfield, and he had that hell of a throw in the back corner of the end zone to Tyler Lockett. Catch of the year, in my opinion.
You know what's crazy about that is that NFL Analytics came back and said that Tyler Lockett only had a 6.8% chance of being able to catch that ball, and absolute insane. If you saw the still frame, I think we might have posted it on our Twitter account.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it looked absolutely insane. I would get that as a poster. I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah, if you're a Seattle fan, it's a great poster to have on your wall. Do people still do that nowadays? Do kids do that, put posters on the wall?
I mean, we did it in a music video recently, but then again, we were trying to emulate the 80s. So
that is true. That is true.
So I don't know. But Russell Wilson ended up being 17 of 23, 268 yards, 4 touchdowns, and carried a 151.8 passer rating, added 8 rushes for 32 yards, but just showing that he is trying to pass more than he is trying to run.
And 37 fantasy points if you're keeping track at home.
Yeah, that kind of hurt me in DraftKings. But looking at the rest of the team that played just great, Chris Carson, 27 rushes, 118 yards, 4.4 average, and had 1 reception for 5 yards. Might not be a big deal, but wait, it was for a touchdown.
I think he's a very underrated running back. He was a 7th round pick in 2017. This is his 3rd year in the NFL, but he's been very under the radar. But he's been a bit of a gem for the Seattle Seahawks in their rushing attack.
Absolutely. And looking at some of the some of the receiving game here, Will Disley, 4 receptions, 81 yards, ended up being a nice target for Russell Wilson all night long. And Tyler Lockett had his 4 receptions for 51 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf even mixed it up. Their rookie wide receiver for 2 receptions, 44 yards and a touchdown.
Good boy.
Yeah, Jerron Brown, 2 receptions, 36 yards. Had a fumble, though. But David Moore had his only reception, 10 yards, but it was for a touchdown. So just showing that Russell Wilson really is starting to spread the ball around and really trying to make it happen in any way he can.
Well, I mean, when you've got the offensive line that they do and all the struggles that they have up front, you have to have guys that are going to be able to extend plays, break off routes, get open, and that's exactly what Russell Wilson does best. Is he's able to extend those plays, and you just get guys downfield, and he's great at directing traffic. And basically tells him, hey, if you see me run outside the pocket, once you get done with your route, don't just stop. Like, try to get open.
Exactly.
I'll get you the ball. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, that's something that he's been able to get a great connection with his wide receivers, with even DK Metcalf. And it's been great to see what they've been able to do offensively. On the flip side, looking at the Rams offense, Jared Goff not looking like the best. Went 29 of 49, had 20 incompletions. That's insane.
he looked a lot better than his stats showed. And
that is true.
So the
defense played great.
The interceptions that he had, the one was probably also the interception of the year. Did a very Julian Edelman-like catch.
This game produced all kinds of highlights because he was on the ground, slid that hand right under, ended up bringing his other hand over, and was still able to pop it back up and catch it while on the ground.
Yeah,
crazy.
Jared Goff did look a bit better than his stats said, but there was a very heavy pass rush on him by the Seattle Seahawks. So that's really what caused a little bit of this dysfunction of the Rams offense. And they've been able to move the ball. They were able to move the ball almost at will on Seattle. Yeah. They just couldn't put up the points and keep their offense on the field or their defense off it.
And that's one thing I think that hurt them real late, because the Rams did have a chance to win this game, but Greg Zuerlein just ended up pushing it just a little bit to the right.
I feel bad for kickers, man, because they literally have one job to do, and Zuerlein went 3 for 4 of field goals. He went 2 for 2 in extra points, but the one field goal he missed
could have been the game winner.
Was the game winner.
You know what's crazy is I started him in fantasy too, and as I'm watching this game, I'm sitting here thinking I picked Seattle to win this game, but I have Greg Zuerlein starting as kicker on my fantasy teams. Crap. Who do I go with?
You go with whatever one's going to make you money. So Zuerlein.
Yeah, and then he missed it. So thanks, Zuerlein. Appreciate it.
But, Jared Goff looked okay, but what I'm really curious about, or really kind of struggling to wrap my head around, is Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley did have 2 rushing touchdowns, but only 15 carries. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry, and he had a fumble. Well, he does not look like the same Todd Gurley that we are accustomed to.
And I don't know if it's because of a lot of the worry of how last season went near the end of the season, where they're worried about the injury, or maybe if it's just a great Seattle rush defense. You know, they got Jadeveon Clowney now, who was able to make all kinds of things happen last night. So maybe some of that's attributed to it. Maybe Todd Gurley just had an off night. But either way, you have to put a big question mark at the running back position right now when it comes to the Rams.
Yeah, and that's the one aspect of this offense they're missing, is that rushing attack. They did not perform well. In the rushing game here. They really only had 19 carries as a team. And it didn't look good. The passing game, was there. Of course, Gerald Everett had a big game. Cooper Kupp again had a big game. But that's what you really need to worry about. If you are the Rams and you want to try to repeat and get back to the success you had last year, you need all phases of the game to be playing well, and that includes that rushing game.
Absolutely. And if you can't get that rushing game going, how are you going to be able to take any kind of pressure off your passing game, which I think showed, because they passed the ball 49 times. Jared Goff looked uncomfortable in the pocket, ended up having an 83.3 passer rating. He was able to get himself out of some situations that ended up working out for the Rams, but that Seattle defense played really great all night.
Yeah, third downs were not kind to the Rams. They went 3 of 11 on third down. They had 24 first down. 18 of those were come by the pass, but the 2 turnovers, man, really, really, really hurt.
Absolutely, they did
in the long run.
But looking at these teams right now, a lot of them. Seattle has a lot of momentum going forward, especially into their next matchup when they take on the Browns on the road next Sunday, 1 p.m. on Fox. Definitely looking to be a very exciting game, especially with the Browns now starting to rebound after their huge win last week against the Ravens, and we'll definitely see what they're able to do today. So definitely going to be interesting. What do the Rams got?
The Rams are going to be at home against the 49ers, and this is going to be another big matchup in the NFC West, especially with you had both of these teams combined before Thursday night's game. They were 9-2. Mm-hmm. They were 9-2 combined going into this week. So the 49ers, they got a big game this week against the Browns on Monday night. But This is going to be another circle the calendar type game. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Now, with our picks last week and our weekly pick 'em, it was not a great week for either of us. I know I went 8-7. You went 7-8. It was a little bit rough, but
we're still hitting over 50%. You're sitting right now at 36, 26 and 1, 58%.
We didn't have to tell them that.
I'm sitting at 41, 21 and 1.
That looks a lot better than mine. Looked a lot better than mine.
But we're both over 50%. It's all right. You got off to a good start picking the Seahawks this week, but
yes, I did. 1-0 to start.
But looking at some of these games, we've got the Cardinals at the Bengals. We've both taken the Cardinals here. Bills Titans. We're both taking the Titans here.
Mm-hmm.
Bears Raiders. We both have the Bears here. What's the other games we have that were consecutive? Oh, Jets Eagles. We both take the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Ravens Steelers. We're both taking the Ravens.
Of course, Patriots Redskins. We both took the Patriots.
Yep.
And of course, Jay Gruden might get fired after this game.
He probably will. Let's be honest.
Let's be honest here.
Jags Panthers. We both have the Jags. Cowboys Packers. Both taking the Cowboys. And Chiefs Colts. We're both taking the Chiefs. So.
Broncos Chargers. Both took Chargers.
So if any of these games are upsets, we're in big trouble here.
We are in big trouble, definitely. But looking at some of the ones we picked different on, Buccaneers and Saints. Interesting one. You had the Saints. I took the Bucs, especially after that 55-point explosion against the Rams.
And I'm curious, is it because of that game that you picked them over the Saints this week?
That and the fact that the Saints, they're not the same offense with Teddy Bridgewater. Not that they're bad. It's not that they're bad at all. The defense really won them that game against the Cowboys more than anything. But I feel like the Buccaneers, if they're able to even replicate half of what they did last week, that they might be able to take this game just like they did last year when you had Fitzmagic go into the Superdome and throw 4 touchdowns in that early matchup in the season last season. I think the Buccaneers have a great shot to be able to win this game on the road against the Saints. And
to their credit, the Buccaneers are averaging over 100 yards per game on the ground, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
For what they need to do. Bruce Arians does like to mix it up. He likes to have that rushing offense work to his advantage. But what I'm really surprised about is their what's his name on defense? Shaquille Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
Shaquille Barrett's having a hell of a season.
Hell of a season.
He's got 9 sacks already, and he has got to be in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year this early in the season. But he's playing out of his mind. He's playing so well for the Buccaneers, and we knew they were going to score points. They're going to be able to score points on almost anybody, as they did for the Rams last week. But I think for the other side, the Saints, they're playing at home. They play so well at home. They upset the Cowboys at home. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily turn the ball over, which helps them in the plus-minus battle, which that's how you're going to win games in the NFL, is that plus-minus.
Definitely, and I have to agree with that. But the big thing I look at with the Saints and who they played, people call them beating the Cowboys an upset. I don't see that as an upset because the Cowboys, honestly, their record is a hollow shell because who do they really beat? Miami, Washington, and the New York Giants. Those aren't very big marquee wins in my book. If Cowboys wanted to have a marquee win, should have beaten the Saints. But at the end of the day, the Saints still were able to pull that one out. So I want to see what the Saints can do against real competition. Not saying that the Bucs are any kind of slouches, but they're not an elite team either. So we'll definitely see how that one plays out. Definitely one to watch out for. But a little tidbit of information here. Drew Brees, though, has already started throwing the ball again.
I saw that this morning on Twitter. He is grasping footballs. He's throwing light throws kind of thing.
Yeah, did you see the videos of him actually throwing? He's kind of working the thumb out a little.
Yeah.
Because apparently they have this new technology that they're using where it's an internal brace they installed into his thumb that's supposed to cut down a few weeks on his recovery process.
Must be nice to have that kind of money to do that, right?
Yeah, right?
If you ever I could have done
I'd have a titanium spine to be able to wrestle again.
Right. See, there you go.
You know?
The bionic man, that is here. That is here.
I'm thinking of getting metal legs.
That would be I would do that if I could. The next game we got the Giants hosting the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
You're picking Big Blue here.
As much as it pains me being an Eagles fan, I am picking Big Blue to win this one. Danny Dimes 2-0 as a starter. If he wins this game against the Vikings, he'll be the first rookie quarterback to come in as a starter for the Giants and start out 3-0 since 1937. Legit stat. Had to look that one up.
Yeah, that's a damn good stat.
It's a damn good stat. And Danny Dimes can do it.
Yeah, but the problem I have is that The Giants have an awful, awful defense.
They do. It's
and
really
the
bad.
Vikings have a very good rushing offense.
Yes.
Dalvin
Yes,
Cook
do.
is one of the best running backs in the league this year. Even if Kirk Cousins, plays like Kirk Cousins when he, takes a knee when he's supposed to spike it, kind of thing, which he did a few years ago in Washington. But even with Kirk Cousins and all of his horrible quarterback play, this defense is good enough to beat this Giants offense. And their rushing attack is good enough to destroy the Giants' pedestrian rush defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're averaging 155 yards on the ground on offense, the Minnesota Vikings are. Mm-hmm. That's best in the league. That's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing.
I don't think there's any way. I think it ends up, it's going to be a close game as most NFL games are, but that's why I'm taking the Vikings.
Definitely makes sense from that point of view, but I think Danny Dimes really can come out and play good, and if he keeps anywhere near what he's been able to do, especially if he's able to prove himself against this Vikings defense, could prove all the world. But the big thing is that Saquon Barkley is ruled out for this game, so definitely going to make an impact, and I think maybe they're going to start keying on the pass a little bit harder.
I was a little surprised to see him in practice earlier this week. I mean, the guy almost had a major ankle injury. He's your franchise guy outside of Danny Dimes. Mm-hmm. You need to make sure he's healthy. Don't roll him out too early. Mm-hmm. So I like that decision. Falcons-Texans. Falcons on the road. They've been super inconsistent. One of the biggest disappointments in the NFL season this year. I'm taking the Texans in this point. I think they're not playing well themselves, but at home against a struggling Atlanta team, I'm taking the home team.
Definitely can see why you think that, but the Falcons have to get this back on track. That offense is way, way too talented, especially after you threw $22 million a year at Julio Jones to make him the highest paid wide receiver. Matt Ryan has to get this thing go. Matty Ice needs to start getting that ice in his veins and start getting this offense down the field, and I think they could actually do it against the Texans, especially with the kind of attack that they are able to roll out. If they can find any kind of consistency on offense, I think the Falcons could start rolling and maybe start getting themselves back up in the standings and start showing that this Falcons team is no joke. This is a real deal.
Well, the problem with Atlanta is they only have 3 takeaways on defense, but they've given up 8 turnovers. So I mean, having that -5 is not a good stat for them, especially when you got Matt Ryan back there, who is one of the better quarterbacks. They've given up 10 sacks. They've thrown 6 picks already this year. That's not good, especially with a team like Houston that is very good at rushing the passer.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the big reasons why I've got the Texans in this game here.
Definitely makes sense. And looking at our last tilt, the big one that we don't agree on, the Monday night game when the Cleveland Browns travel out west to San Francisco to Levi Stadium to take on the San Francisco 49ers. I have the 49ers. You've taken the Browns. But the big thing I see here is that the 49ers are undefeated, 3-0 for the first time in a number of years. Jimmy G hasn't been playing great football, but hasn't been playing horrible football. Currently sporting a passer rating of a 96.3. He does have 5 touchdowns and 4 picks on the year. They have been having issues at running back, though, with key injuries. But the thing I look at is this team has always been able to overcome, and they have a defense right now who is overachieving, especially with Richard Sherman out there.
This was a very tough game for me to pick. And for some reason, I wanted to pick the Niners. But I'm just telling me, like, the guts telling myself pick the Browns. This is one of those games that, yes, San Francisco's defense has been playing very well. They're coming off of a bye week, but there's just something about this game that tells me pick the Browns. Having played that game last week against the Ravens and having that huge upset. I think this defense is going to get to Jimmy G. He's got 4 interceptions on the year already through the first 3 games. His first 3 games. Myles Garrett has 6 sacks this year. So I think they're going to have a chance to get to the quarterback early, get to him often. It's going to be a really close game, I think, but I give the edge to the Browns here.
Well, the big thing I see with the 49ers is as a team, they have one of the best third down conversion rates in the league behind only the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the only ones over 50%. Right now, the 49ers are averaging about 48.5%, which isn't too bad. And as a team, they rush for about 175 yards a game. They have 525 yards on 114 carries, an almost 5-yard average as a rushing team. So definitely really huge for them. So I think they could definitely hang The big thing I worry about, and what it always comes down to, is being able to generate turnovers. That is a big issue for them. Sometimes they're only -1 right now. They need to try and capitalize on that more and try and get some more to be able to start getting a larger margin in these games, because they are averaging 32 points a game. So we'll definitely see what the 49ers are able to pull off going forward.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great game on Monday night. It's kind of funny that you're seeing the Browns all of a sudden they get a few players and they're on almost every Monday night game this year. It's kind of
funny how that works.
You think they're trying to push the Browns into everyone's national spotlight? But,
underdog stories, everybody loves them.
Yeah, but one of the big keys for this game, for these games here, is one of the other news that came out this week is revolving around the Minnesota Vikings. Stephon Diggs reportedly wants out of Minnesota. He's frustrated with Kirk Cousins. Adam Thielen has thrown him under the bus already this week as well. He has actually been activated today, Stephon Diggs, so he will be playing in that game against the Giants. But he's been fined $200,000 by the Vikings for missing team meetings and practices for undisclosed reasons, I believe. But talking about where he could get traded to, Minnesota's already said, nope, that's not happening.
Exactly. Stephon Diggs even came out himself and said, I didn't request a trade, but that doesn't mean he doesn't want to trade. So we're really definitely going to see how this turns out. If Minnesota doesn't start stringing together some wins here soon with the kind of weapons that they have in this passing game, we might see a lot more turmoil in that locker room going forward.
And that's one of the big things that you have when you have a guy that you gave all this guaranteed money to, and he's not even a great quarterback, but it's just kind of what you have to live with. So this is really going to be interesting to watch and listen about what comes out of this this whole situation with Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to be interesting going forward. So it's definitely something we're going to keep an eye on going forward. So it's definitely going to be quite interesting. I just want to see if this ends up being the piece that makes them fall. Do we end up seeing maybe a purge of the Minnesota Vikings?
I don't think so. I mean, if this team doesn't win the division or at least get close to a wild card, I think the coaching staff's probably going to go anyway. Zimmer's probably going to be out, and then they're probably going to move on from Kirk Cousins after this year or next year because they got one more year with him.
Yeah, he's guaranteed.
I think it's guaranteed he's going to be gone, and this is a good example for owners saying that they don't want to pay all this guaranteed money. This is the perfect example they're going to use in the CBA is go, well, we paid this guy all this money and now he shit the bed and, okay, sorry. That's why we don't want to pay you guaranteed money.
On the flip side, too, though, it was Kirk Cousins. What were they thinking to begin with?
He was, and that's funny because unfortunately he was the best quarterback available at that point.
Yeah.
Should you have given him all that money? It's not Kirk Cousins' fault that he negotiated that contract.
Exactly.
It's the Minnesota Vikings' fault for giving it to him.
Exactly. Kirk Cousins is just a lucky man who's able to get all that money guaranteed. Oh my goodness! But looking at it, man.
But surprisingly, we do have other sports that have been going on.
We do have other sports. Believe it or not, there's more things than football. Like, oh wait, Major League Baseball playoffs, and it has been a doozy.
And the one thing that I like about the Major League Baseball playoffs is since they changed the wild card rule to have the one game elimination, it just puts so much more drama and emphasis on that one game. And those wild card games did not disappoint this week.
Oh, they absolutely did not. We ended up having the Rays playing the Oakland Athletics, ended up taking that game 5-1. Rays just looked real strong in that game overall, but the Nationals and Brewers, this one kind of broke my heart just because you know how the soft spot I've had for the Brewers this season.
Absolutely.
And without Christian Yelich, they ended up falling 4-3 to the Nationals in a classic.
Yeah,
Gosh,
the Rays came out and they're not big home run hitting team. Okay, they're not like the Yankees of the Dodgers of the world, but they came out swinging in that game over in Oakland. And they showed that they can play ball and they know their matchups and they're very cerebral in how they approach these games, especially given the limited amount of cap that they have to work with, the little bit amount that they pay their players. So they have to really be creative and give a bunch of credit to that coaching staff. They did what they needed to do. The Nationals and Brewers, on the other hand, The Brewers were leading 3-1 in the eighth.
They
had
were.
it. And then they gave up all 3 runs.
It was so painful to watch.
It was, oh, man. I was texting you. I was like, oh, man, your Brewers are up. And then within the next 5 minutes, I went, are you watching this game?
Yep, JK. Look what the Nationals just did.
But
and it was
Rays,
a heartbreaker.
But yeah, the Rays move on to the ALDS to play the Houston Astros, who they actually had a winning record. They were one of the only 2 teams that had a winning record against the Astros in the middle of the season. But it hasn't started off too well for them. And the Nationals move on to play the Dodgers, who have been one of the best teams in baseball throughout the whole regular season.
Absolutely. And looking at that Dodgers Nationals lineup, what they've played so far, they're 2 games in right now. Game 1, the Dodgers took 6-0, ended up with 6 runs on only 7 hits. And it's just been insane with starting pitcher Walker Buehler, who was 14-4 during the regular season, had pitched 6 innings, had 1 hit, 8 strikeouts. The rest of the bullpen, though, only had 1 hit and 5 more strikeouts to add on to it. And the Dodgers dominated this one with showing what their bullpen really can do.
Yeah, that game. If you liked pitching, you were a fan of watching that game.
Absolutely,
big time. But the game 2. Nationals came back and they responded. They won 4-2 on the road. The Nationals had 4 runs on 10 hits in that game. Steven Strasburg was dealing. He went 18-6 in the regular season, but in this game, he was dealing 6 innings, only gave up 3 hits, only 1 run, 10 strikeouts. The rest of the bullpen, 7 strikeouts over the next 3 innings. And Max Scherzer even made a little bit of an appearance.
I'll say he doesn't do a lot of relief pitching, but he came in the 8th, ended up getting 3 strikeouts, didn't let one run by, played really great. But, man, I tell you what, it was kind of night and day going from game 1 to game 2.
Yeah, they had 4 players with an RBI, the Nationals did, and 2 RBIs of those 4 came with 2 outs. Which is huge.
So gutsy.
So clutch.
So clutch.
But on the Dodgers side, they had 6 batters with at least 2 strikeouts, and 3 of those batters had 3 strikeouts. That's really, if you're the Dodgers and you want to be one of the best teams in baseball, you're gonna have games maybe like that, especially when you're running into Strasburgs and the Scherzers of the world.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking at my World Series pick, the Astros, what do you look at their rotation? If you're struggling in the NLDS, if you're struggling in the NLDS against these kind of pitchers who are great pitchers, that does not bode well for you moving forward in the NLCS or even the World Series.
Exactly. I have to absolutely agree because it's been just absolutely crazy. But looking at the other side of the NLDS, we had the Braves who were taking on the Cardinals. This one's been really interesting as well, especially with game 1. It was so close, and the Cardinals ended up taking it 7-6. St. Louis had 14 hits, 4 of their 7 runs in the top of the 9th, and they played absolutely out of their mind. First baseman Paul Goldschmidt ended up going 2 for 4, 2 runs, a home run, an RBI. Dude, just playing out of his mind. He had
an all-around game, and that's what you traded for him, or that's what you got him for.
Exactly.
You got him from Arizona because that's what you wanted him to be. You wanted him to be the middle of the lineup guy, batting in that cleanup spot, and that's what you wanted for, is these big moments. And he absolutely came through with that stat line.
Absolutely did. And Atlanta on the other side, though, didn't play no slouch themselves. Had 9 hits. They trailed 7-3 in the bottom of the 9th. Ronald Acuna Jr., though, 3 of 4, 1 home run and 2 RBIs, playing really strong and showing why they brought him into Atlanta.
They have such a great young core of players.
Absolutely.
They're going to be so much fun to watch over the next couple of years, assuming they can all stay together. But yeah, Acuna, he's a hell of a player. This is going to be a great series between these two. And also, game 2 did not disappoint.
Absolutely.
Atlanta wins that game 3-0. They had 3 runs on 8 hits. And their starting pitcher, Mike Foltynewicz.
There you go.
I probably butchered it, but it's close enough. 7 innings, 3 hits, 7 strikeouts. And so great outing for him.
And, St. Louis did try to hang in this. They had 6 hits and 6 runners that were left on base. All 6 were in the scoring position. So just think, if St. Louis was able to capitalize on that, got a few more runs, this one could have went their way.
Yeah, even 50%, you're a tie game. So
exactly.
That's the one thing in playoff baseball. If you get runners in scoring position, you got to bring them home, because if not, your offense is really going to struggle, and you're not going to make it far in the postseason.
Yeah, most definitely. And the thing I look at, both NLDS games are going to be real classics going forward, so it's definitely going to be something to watch out for.
And both game 6s both game 3s are tonight.
Yes.
October 6th.
That's right. They're going to be on TBS, so definitely make sure that you check them out. They're going to be instant classics, I'm sure, if any of these two games have taught us anything for each of these. Oh my gosh, I'm so all over the place right now. I'm so excited for playoff baseball for both of these playoff series, so definitely make sure that you check them out. But looking at the AL side, what do we got going on there?
AL side, we've got the Astros and the Rays. Of course, the Rays had to win that wild card game to make it here. Game 1, 2, Astros.
Woo.
I mean, game 1 was a
surprised.
6-2 demolishing, really. Justin Verlander, of course, having watched him in Detroit for so many years, you know what he can do, but he is defying Father Time here.
Oh, he's absolutely defying
He had
it.
7 innings pitched in game 1, 8 strikeouts. He did walk 3 batters, but he only gave up 1 hit. And that right there, that is vintage Justin Verlander in the playoffs.
And what's funny is that when they asked Tampa Bay manager Kevin Cash about what went wrong for the Rays, he said, "We got Verlandered."
So if you're not familiar with what the term Verlandered is, the term Verlandered actually comes from it's basically a slang term for somebody that defies the laws of aging.
Yes.
So like the funny example that I saw was Tom Brady Verlandered in the Super Bowl or something like that. It was pretty funny. But game 2, more of the same from the Houston Astros. Starting pitcher Garrett Cole pitched 7 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 15 strikeouts in that game 2. This pitching staff is no joke, and this is what's going to be carrying them. The starting pitchers are going to carry them into the LCS, into the World Series. If you want to beat this team, you got to do what the Rays did in the wild card game. You got to get to these starting pitchers early and often, get into their bullpen. But if you let them get rolling, this kind of stuff right here shows you what can happen to your team.
Absolutely. The Astros, I feel like, have been pretty dominant. Obviously, the Rays were able to keep things a little bit closer, but really, you just kind of cut the score in half from game 1 to game 2. Looking at Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, even Greinke, like this is going to be a monster rotation that I don't think anybody's going to be able to stop.
I don't think so either, and that's part of the reason why I had them as my World Series pick, especially after they acquired Greinke at the trade deadline.
Oh, yeah.
That solidified it for me that I don't think there's anybody that's going to be beating these Astros this year.
Yeah, I had to pick the Astros, too, after obviously my Red Sox didn't qualify, and after that Greinke trade, there was no denying who really is going to be able to make a run. But looking at our other divisional series, the Yankees and the Twins has not been close, especially for both these teams being 100-plus win teams. The Yankees ended up just taking it and shellacking them 10-4, and then Minnesota suffered a major league record 14th consecutive playoff defeat. Oh, and of those 14, 11 have been to the Yankees since 2004.
Yikes. And that game right there, having it 10-4, the Yankees got 10 runs on only 8 hits, just to give you an idea. They got off to a fast start. DJ LeMahieu went 3 of 5 with 2 runs, 4 RBI, and a home run. Brett Gardner also went 1 of 4, but his one was a home run. They've gotten some great play out of all their guys in this game, and they're just playing well. They used a lot of pitchers in game 1, but that's one of the other strengths of this team is that they have a lot of guys, a lot of arms they can throw at you.
Absolutely. And looking at game 2, the Yankees ended up taking that one 8-2. Didi Gregorius ended up hooking a slump-busting grand slam during a 7-run third inning that ended up just putting the Yankees so far ahead that really the Twins had no chance to come back and win that game whatsoever. Yeah,
and the really tough thing about this game for Minnesota is they left 4 runners in scoring position throughout this game, and it's you can't have that if you're trying to win playoff games and trying to advance any further than they have. But I think this ALDS has already shown you through the first couple games of each series, it's the Astros and the Yankees and everybody else in the AL.
Absolutely it is, and it's looking to be that it's going to end up being the Astros and the Yankees in the ALCS once we get to that point.
I think it happened because both games are now shifting to to the Rays and the Twins. So
that's true.
Anything can happen. I mean, it is only a 5-game series, though.
But and with that, you got to remember the Astros and Yankees each only need one win, and it's over. But with both, they're both going to be playing both these series Monday, October 7th. With the Rays and Astros will be on Major League Baseball Network. With the Yankees and Twins will be on FS1. So definitely make sure to check those out. And honestly, at this point, I think the Astros and Yankees are already going to win regardless.
It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. Playoff baseball is always great television, but we've hit the perfect sports equinox right now in October because we talked about college football, NFL, and baseball. We got hockey and basketball starting right now.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Hockey had their opening week this week, and it did not disappoint. So many great games already. We got to point out the best play of the opening week already.
Oh, yes. The best play of the opening week went to none other than Devils' Blake Coleman, who had that disgusting one-handed goal while falling down to put New Jersey up 4-0 against Winnipeg in the second period. If you have not seen it, go look it up. Literally, he is holding his hockey stick with his right hand and just flicks it up and over into the number 3 zone and just gets that fourth goal. It was absolutely amazing. And I tell you what, I love that hockey season is back.
Yeah, I do too. It's so much fun for these games, and they're just I just love that hockey's back. But we're going to be releasing power rankings roughly every week, similar how we did for baseball.
Yes,
and that's going to be coming to you within the next few days. But real quick, already off to hot starts. The Toronto Blue Jays.
Wow, look at you just mashing teams together.
Absolutely just destroyed it.
Now Toronto and St. Louis fans hate you.
All right. The Maple Leafs and the Capitals both off to hot starts, having 5 points apiece through 3 games. They're 2-0-1, of course having one overtime loss.
Well, the Capitals, though, ended up in their opener.
Win, I'm sorry.
Yes. The Capitals ended up beating the defending Stanley Cup champions in the opener 3-2 in overtime in a very, very exciting game where Verona ended up scoring the overtime winner, and it was just an amazing game to watch if you didn't get to see it. Ovechkin ended up getting his one goal in there, and it was just a great game to watch through and through.
Yeah, the Rangers are off to a 2-0 start, which is very, very surprising for a lot of people. And don't look now. My Red Wings are undefeated.
Oh my gosh.
It's only one game, just saying, but it is against Nashville on the road.
Well, in that vein, don't look now, but my Philadelphia Flyers are undefeated 1-0.
Hey, we can enjoy it while we last, okay?
Yes, we can
enjoy
sir.
it while it lasts.
Yes, we can.
But looking over real quick at the Western Conference, the Avalanche are off to a hot start, 2-0. The Blues did have that one overtime loss against the Capitals, but they're off to 3 points. The Golden Knights, the Ducks, and the Oilers, surprisingly, all at 2-0 and 4 points in the Pacific Division. The Golden Knights, so I know we were talking about our picks for the year, and I kind of went off the rails a little bit.
Yes, you did.
Just because, you know what, you got to take some chances, and I'm taking a chance on taking the Predators. But in a realistic world, Golden Knights are probably the team to beat for me.
But how about this shocker? The San Jose Sharks, 0-3.
Yeah, that's a big shocker. I mean, in those 3 losses, they have back-to-back games against the Golden Knights, which is a very good team, and the Ducks, the team that you said to watch out for.
Oh, yeah, who are 2-0 right now.
But they've only scored 3 goals in 3 games, and they've given up 12 goals in 3 games.
Absolutely crazy. But let's look at who actually leads differential now that we're talking about it. Buffalo Sabres are in a tie at +7 with the Vegas Golden Knights. So definitely watch out for those 2 offenses looking like they're trying to get an early lead in that differential.
Yeah, -9 for the San Jose Sharks. Ouch.
Yeah, worst in the league right now. The only one in front of them is the Columbus Blue Jackets at -8.
-8, yeah. Oh, girl, and they're supposed to be a really rough team to watch this year, too.
Blue Jackets are going to be painful.
Going to be bad. But, look for those power rankings to come out in a few days. But NBA, the preseason just getting underway.
Most definitely. A lot of greatness going on. I know they've been playing a lot of international play. We had the Sacramento Kings. Who were they playing against? I can't even remember now. The Indiana Pacers. Had to remember that for a moment. That played in India. Had a nice little game there. Spurs ended up taking that one by 20+. So definitely watch out. It's been an exciting preseason already. And the Magic Gotta say here, the Magic ended up beating the Spurs in their preseason opener by over 30 points. I'm telling you, that's crazy.
Come on.
I know. Hey, I got to get it where I can because you know what I really loved about it? Markelle Fultz. Looking good. He's looking good. Don't hate.
I absolutely will hate because he's not great.
125-89. Mo Bamba ended up having 18.7 rebounds and an assist in that game.
So just real quick, what was great about Markelle Fultz's game?
That he actually has fixed his jump shot. His mechanics are better.
3 of 8 is fixing his jump shot?
It's preseason. You just said it yourself.
Oh, okay. I see. All right. I see what you did there. All right.
We're still working on it. Still working on it.
But you know who is working on their game? James Harden.
Oh.
He's adding yet another odd play to his repertoire. And he's adding this weird fall away, like one-footed jump shot. But it's not like the like Dirk Nowitzki fadeaway. He's dribbling to his right. Now remember, he's left-handed.
Yeah.
He's dribbling to his right and then does a little mini hop step and jumps off his left foot and shoots fading right left-handed. It is so ugly.
That makes my
to
brain
watch.
hurt.
Yeah, it makes everyone's brain hurt. It makes my brain hurt watching it. It makes my eyeballs hurt. But it's so unnecessary for him to add to this game. But this is kind of what part of the joke of the NBA has become is that you can get away with stuff like this. The argument has been all over Instagram and Twitter is whether or not it's traveling. Technically, it's not because he's got his gather step and he's only using his 1 foot to jump.
Exactly.
But it's the mockery that he's making of trying to be creative. His coach, D'Antoni, already said he doesn't need to add this to his game. And his response was, yeah, I know I don't need to, but I want to be more creative in how I make because I can score anytime I want.
Wow.
That's literally, it's not word for word, but that's the cliff notes of what he said.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, you're right, but do you really need to do that? Probably not.
Well, I mean, Harden's already making other headlines as well because, he was called for an offensive foul with a bit more than 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter in a game recently. And,
the preseason game against the Clippers, I believe.
Against the Clippers, yes, where we had our very first coach's challenge by Mike D'Antoni, who challenged the personal foul, ended up being upheld by the officials. But still, just to see that happen for the very first time just goes to show might have a little bit of a shift in the NBA when it comes to that. If you're not up to speed when it comes to the challenge rule, here are the stipulations with the new rule. A challenge must be initiated by calling a timeout and the challenging coach twirling his index finger in a circle. So, we can't just have flags, I guess, or something, more simple. Maybe just have a guy run across the floor and just wave something or something. I don't know. Right. Personal fouls called on the coach's own team, out of bounds calls, goaltending, and basket interference can all be challenged.
Okay. I like most of those.
I like most of those as well. Only personal foul calls are challengeable in the last 2 minutes of the game. Other reviews can only be triggered by officials in that time period. So they're kind of adopting the NFL 2-minute rule at that point, with the exception of the personal foul. Teams also get only one challenge per game, regardless of whether or not it is a successful challenge. So another interesting little tidbit.
Because it's not going to slow down the game as much.
Exactly.
If you give them like 2 or however the NFL does it, you get 2 and then you can get a third.
Yes.
That slows down the game, in my opinion.
I have to agree. It's
also very strategic because if you are, say, like a Greg Popovich or something, and you're in the fourth quarter of a game, and it's a close game, you could make that challenge, and it could kind of change your fortunes.
Absolutely, and it really could change the whole momentum of a game. But for a call to be overturned, they have to quote, there must be clear and conclusive visual evidence that the call was incorrect, end quote, according to the NBA.
Here's the issue with that. All of these calls, whether it's baseball, especially baseball, football, basketball, a lot of these foul calls, subjective.
Very subjective.
It's like with college basketball. Remember we were talking about in the tournament, the foul, no foul, dribbling up the court with Virginia, and you're like, well, this is a foul. Like, well, if that's a foul, this was a foul 2 seconds before. Everything is so subjective. These are going to end up taking away from the game because all these. And I joked with you right when you brought this up to me. I was like, these referees are going to turn around and go, "Oh, you're questioning how I call? we're upholding everything that's called on the court.
Oh my gosh.
Just as a big FU to the coaches.
It really very well could.
NFL's already doing it because there's been clear plays in the NFL that should be turned one way or another. The pass interference with the Eagles and Packers.
Yes.
Should have been a pass interference. They challenged it and they went, no, we're upholding it. But it was clear pass interference. I think that's the referees trying to say, F you, we're doing this. This is what we call. We're sticking with it. I think you're going to start to see a real divide. Not only, we've already had in the NBA a divide amongst players and refs.
Yep.
I think now you're going to see coaches and refs, then players and refs also.
Yeah, it's going to just become a bigger divide.
So many problems until they can figure it out.
I absolutely agree. And the last part of this new rule, if a team tries to use a challenge without having any timeouts, it will automatically be assessed a technical foul.
I like that.
And I think that's a great idea.
I like it. Except for the fact if you don't have any timeouts and there is a clear call that they didn't make, you're going to get boned.
Well, that's where the officials are supposed to come in because they haven't said that everything's going to obviously be reviewable, but they say that other reviews can be triggered by the officials in those last 2 minutes. So if you get late in a game and something happens, at that point, officials are supposed to be reviewing it anyways.
Right.
Now, I wonder, though, if this will end up, if eventually the NBA is going to end up having to adopt the NFL approach to where every play has to be reviewable by the booth, to where if a coach doesn't challenge it or say they don't have the means to challenge it, but the officials think that maybe it was clear and concise, they need to take a look at it. Do you think they end up taking that type of an approach?
No, because it'll slow down the game too much. There's so many calls. Like the NBA actually has a lot more calls than an NFL game.
They really do.
So
really do.
It's already that. This generation is you have to keep eyes on the tube as much as you can, eyes on your screen as much as you can.
Right.
By slowing down that game, look at how much baseball struggles.
Oh, horrifically with it.
That's part of the reason why. Why do you think they're trying to speed up the game? I don't think they'll go that far, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
I think maybe they should, but only if it's, like I said earlier, like clear and concise, like absolutely clear as day. Then I think maybe in those kinds of instances it should be. But like you said, we don't have time to sit down and look at every single play because there are so many more calls in basketball than there are in any other sport.
Right. But it'll be a lot of fun to watch. I'm curious to see who's going to make the first challenge when the regular season gets started, which that starts Tuesday, October 22nd. We're going to have our season preview and predictions the previous weekend on Sunday. Whichever we're going with Sundays now, I think.
Yeah, we're going with Sundays at the moment. So Sunday, October 20th should be our preview show for the NBA, and it's going to be exciting. I
2 weeks out.
Wait. Cannot wait.
2 weeks
but
away.
Now it's time for something real special that we love doing every week.
Yeah, I love this. I look forward to this segment just to see all the things that we come up with.
Oh, yeah. So this week in sports history, and we're going to lead off with the big one right off rip. I'm going to go ahead and give you the honors.
Oh, thank you. I'm a little bit of a Cubs fan, so I do think this one's kind of cool. And really terrible if you're kind of a Cubs fan.
Yeah, don't hate us.
October 6, 1945, tavern owner, quote, Billy Goat Sionis. Sionis or Sionis? Sionis. He buys a seat for his goat to Game 4 of the World Series. He is escorted out and then casts the goat curse, the curse of the Billy Goat, on the Chicago Cubs.
Yes, and it took you guys forever to overcome that.
Forever to recover from that.
Exactly. But October 7th, 1916, and I hold this one kind of close because I always loved this stat. Georgia Tech, then coached by John Heisman, defeats Cumberland 222-0 in the most lopsided score in the history of college football.
You said Alabama wrong. October 7th, 2012, New Orleans quarterback Drew Brees breaks Johnny Unitas' NFL record for consecutive games with a touchdown pass, which is 48, when he connects with Devery Henderson in a 31-24 win over San Diego at the Superdome.
Awesome record there. And then looking at another record, October 8th, 1995, Dolphins quarterback Dan Marino breaks Fran Tarkenton's NFL career completions record on way to not winning a Super Bowl ever.
Yeah, and the greatest quarterback to never win it. And, of course, on our set, we do have a little signed memorabilia from Dan Marino. That's we're a little tribute to him.
Our little tribute to him.
October 8th, 2018.
Man, you get another Drew Brees one.
Drew Brees. Drew Brees is the NFL's all-time leader in passing yards. He needed 201 yards to break Peyton Manning's record, and he got 363 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Saints' 43-19 win over the Redskins at home in the Superdome. And that pass play was on a touchdown.
It was, and the Redskins still losing games like that too. Huh. Funny how that works out. October 9th, 1915, Woodrow Wilson becomes the first ever U.S. president to attend a World Series game.
Very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, very interesting.
October 10th, 1976, Greece's 98-year-old Demetrian Jordanidis
Yeah.
is the oldest man to compete in a marathon. He finishes in 7:33.
Yeah, 7 hours and 33 minutes. Pretty crazy.
Yeah,
October 11th.
I hope I'm that spry when I'm that old.
Yeah, right. October 11th, 1980, the Dallas Mavericks opened their season debut in the NBA with a 103-92 victory against interstate rivals the San Antonio Spurs at Reunion Arena.
And weren't relevant until Mark Cuban took over.
That's right.
October 12th, 1979, Boston Celtics guard Chris Ford scores the first three-point basket in NBA history in the first quarter of a 114-106 win against Houston at the Boston Garden. This game also marks the debut of rookie one Larry Bird.
Oh, that's crazy because on the very same day on October 12th, 1979, future Basketball Hall of Famer forward Magic Johnson makes his debut for the LA Lakers while they're playing at the San Diego Clippers, and the Lakers win 103-102.
Those two had and then played in the NCAA championship game a few months earlier that year.
That's right, they did. Crazy the kind of history that you see there. But now it's time for the good old give or go. And I'm going to go ahead and throw this one to you. I don't know if you saw any of this. Pretty interesting.
I haven't.
Enes Kanter says that, quote unquote, thugs harassed him outside a mosque over political views when two men approached him and fellow teammate Taco Fall after they left the Boston Mosque right near their training facility. Give or go.
This is a weird scenario. I'm going to go on it because, I don't like to get too political on this show.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to touch that. It's never a good thing. You should never have any kind of harassment over your political or religious views, but this is such a weird story. I'm going to go on.
Well, it's with Enes Kanter, and he's having all these issues, with his.
He has been pretty outspoken
with
over
Turkey
the last year,
right?
With Turkey and all that,
and that's what a lot of this apparently links to. But yeah, it seems like it's just going to be a forever ongoing thing. So
yeah. All right, next one. CFL star Bo Levi Mitchell says he rejected an NFL offer from the Minnesota Vikings because they said they did not want a QB controversy.
Ooh.
Give or go.
I'm going to give on this one a little because Bo Levi, he's a two-time CFL MVP with the Calgary Stampeders. The guy is a good quarterback. And I find it kind of ridiculous that you would bring a guy in to work him out to not try and give him a legitimate shot at a starting spot. Now, I understand, obviously, Kirk Cousins has all his guaranteed money and all this stuff. But the biggest thing that Bo Levi Mitchell said is that when he had the meeting back in December with the Minnesota Vikings, that they asked him, what are your intentions with joining this team? And he said, oh, well, I'm going to try and become the starter. And then the Vikings were like, well, no, that's not what we want you for. We don't want you to do that at all. We want you to try and help Kirk Cousins round out his game, help teach him how to be a better player, try and help him in the ins and outs of what he needs to try and help make him what we need him to be. And at that point, I feel like any normal player should, Bo Levi Mitchell was like, well, if that's all you want, then I'm good. No, I don't want to be here. Because he said very openly that he found it absolutely ridiculous that just because you threw a bunch of money at a guy, that you're not going to want someone pushing him. And if you have someone who's going to win you games, why you wouldn't play them over someone who is playing like garbage? I mean, pretty plain and simple. But anyways, moving on to the next one. Redskins declined to comment on a pair of apparent Jay Gruden videos that came out recently. Give or go.
This is such a weird scenario, but it's very Washington Redskins-esque.
Oh, very.
So we're gonna give on this. A couple of videos surfaced just hours after Gruden named Colt McCoy the starting QB this weekend against the Patriots. The videos appear to show Jay Gruden smoking some substance, which has appeared to be pot, potentially. And the other is the head coach sitting on the ground talking to young. I don't know what that one's all about. But speculation is that someone in the Washington Redskins is trying to release this video to get Gruden fired.
That's what it seems like.
And it's funny to me because you don't have to go that far because you could fire him anytime you want because he's a terrible coach and they're not playing well anyway.
Yeah, they're winless.
But this is more so the dysfunction of the Washington Redskins. I don't think it's ever going to change until they get new ownership.
Absolutely, I have to agree. I mean, it's why they haven't changed the name of the Redskins either.
That's an argument we don't need to get into.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that. It gets into political stuff anyways.
But, this is just more of the dysfunction of the Washington Redskins as a whole. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's really going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. I think if he gets fired, nothing will come out of it anyway.
Right.
But if it's just pot, who cares?
Yeah,
like it's pot.
I mean, it's legal in over half the states.
It's legal
in the
in a
US
lot of
anyways.
places now. Yeah, and they're
so
anyway.
He might have a green card. You don't know.
Maybe, you never know. The final one: NFL fines Ben Roethlisberger $5,000 for wearing an Apple Watch on the Steelers sideline last weekend. Give her a go.
I'm going to go for only one reason, and that was the reasoning Ben Roethlisberger gave to why he was wearing it in the first place. Now, he said he never received any kind of advance warning or anything that the violation was going to come through or anything before he got the fine letter for wearing the device because he said he didn't even realize he had it on, and this is why. He said that he was unable to use his right arm, and because of that, his wife dressed him for the Monday night game and strapped the Apple Watch onto his left wrist. And the only thing I got to say is, you're going to blame your wife?
Mrs. Roethlisberger, blink twice if you're there against your will. Blink 3 times if he cornered you in a bathroom. Wait, what?
Was it in Atlanta? Oh, wait. Well, I mean, we're not doing video this week, so we're not going to be able to see it either way. We can't properly help her, Craig.
We can't properly help her. Blink 3 times.
I like as you're blinking over here. Oh, my goodness. But that is absolutely ridiculous, though. You got to blame your wife. Come on now. No matter if you cornered her or not. Anyways, but sadly, we are getting near the end of our episode, so now we got to take a look at the week ahead.
All the NFL games, all the big matchups we talked about earlier this week, those are going to be a lot of fun to watch. A lot of big storylines there. But, of course, NCAA, we got our top 25s we're releasing this week, but we got big games next week that we have to look at. The first one being the Red River rivalry, the Texas and Oklahoma game. That's going to be a big one.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be probably one of the biggest games there is, right next to Florida versus LSU, which I think is going to probably be the game of the week.
Probably the marquee game of the national spotlight. Of course, your Notre Dame Fighting Irish traveling or having
USC travel to us. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be taking on USC at home in South Bend in the house that Rockne built, and hopefully we'll be able to steal that one and take it on, keep our good run going.
Penn State and Iowa is one of the other big games we're looking forward to next week, and big positioning there in the Big Ten for those two teams.
Absolutely, and of course we still have the NBA preseason going on. It's going to be a lot of excitement until we get to the lead up in 2 weeks when we have our big prediction and season preview rolling in October 22nd for the start of the NBA season. It's going to be real exciting. Preview coming October 20th.
And MLB playoffs are in the middle of our DS series. We've got a couple of games tonight on Sunday, and then they just keep on rolling until we get to the championship series, most likely later this week, because it looks like the Yankees and the Astros are going to roll in their series, and then in the National League, both teams are tied at 1-1. That's going to be some fun baseball to watch moving forward.
Definitely will be. So definitely make sure you keep your eyes out, especially with Final Score and all the great things that we're releasing. So definitely make sure that you follow us on Final Score on all of our social media accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at PCN Final Score. Give us a like, give us a follow, and make sure to check for those notifications. That way you can make sure you get all the up-to-date news and updates from Final Score. And of course, you need to follow us on our myriad of different platforms. We release all of our content, including iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, Google Play Music, Podbean. I'm having to remember all these from memory. iHeartRadio. What am I forgetting? There's two more. Spotify and YouTube. There we go. YouTube. So definitely make sure.
And podcastcity.net/Final Score.
That's right. So go on there, check out our sports blog and all of our latest episodes and all the episodes there in totality and all the great stuff that we have going on there. But sadly, this is the end of episode 31. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great ride, but now it's time to step away. I'm Chris. Over there is Craig.
We got some football to watch.
That's right. So y'all have a great night.
Podcast City Network.